Chapter 1122. Other matters? What other matters? Wasn't the case under control? The chief inspector didn't understand. Foreigners always looked a little confused when they were confused. Please refer to the question mark picture of a black man. At this time, the sky outside was completely dark. There was also a Lamborghini parked in a university. It was not uncommon to see sports cars of the same price in a university. Therefore, the pure black Lamborghini did not look too flashy. Of course, that was just an illusion. Ever since the Lamborghini was parked here, it had been very boring. He felt bored because his master's little fairy didn't turn off its intelligence system. When Xiao Hei was bored, it began to scan its companions. Its master always laughed at it for not having eyes. Did she think that its rearview mirror was dead? It tries to say hello to the narrator's Land Rover. The Land Rover was cold and aloof, ignoring it. In the end, it figured out that other than itself, the rest of the cars shouldn't be intelligent. This feeling of being the only one awake while the world was asleep was very comfortable. Let's play some music to get high. Just as the smart navigation system fluctuated, a university professor happened to be driving and was shocked by the sudden movement of the car next to him. There was no one in the car, so how did the music come out? The professor tilted his head to take a closer look. Is there a problem with my car? A faint voice came into his ears. No, it's very cool. The university professor smiled. He must have wanted to see how the car could play music on its own. Chinemo walked to the side of the car, whispered the password, and pulled the door open. After the car beside him left, he said, "Didn't your master tell you that if you suddenly make a sound, people will treat it as a supernatural event? Master said that you don't have to care about these details." Chinemo remained silent, turning the steering wheel with one hand. The navigation system became serious at this moment. It had to be serious. Its owner's little vixen never played by the book. Where do you want to go? Automatically guide the route. Chinemo tilted his handsome and elegant face. He seemed to be a little silent. Finally, he said, "Let's go back to the castle." Back to the castle. The black Lamborghini was shocked. Was this person crazy? It was one thing for him to willingly be kidnapped, but now he still wanted to return to the castle. It really couldn't understand such complicated humans. However, if Master saw that her little fairy was going back, she would definitely be happy. She would definitely be happy. The smart navigation system could also analyze fluctuations. Sometimes, it was true that they would ask questions. In the face of such a question, Chinmo's voice was calm. "If I leave after sleeping with me, wouldn't I be letting your master have it easy?" The black Lamborghini thought. What a devil. Check if there's a Burger King nearby. Chinmo didn't seem to care about the erratic navigation. Black Lamborghini. We need to take a detour. Go around. One word, simple and clear. The black Lamborghini was now wondering whose car it belonged to. He thought he would wait outside for a while. She didn't expect the man to order takeout, so she just put it aside and didn't eat it. As a smart car, the Lamborghini had some analytical abilities. Master buys this every time he comes out. She likes to eat this kind of junk food. Chinmo's voice carried his usual nonchalance. The black Lamborghini fluctuated again. "So you bought this one? Don't you know that your master loves to feed me? It's convenient to feed her with fries and chicken strips." Black Lamborghini. In order to let master feed you, you even brought your own tools? How shameless. Why did it feel that the information it had received from his master was all wrong? This great demon king was clearly enjoying it. It felt that master seemed to have misunderstood something. When there was a chance, it would tell master about this devil's scheme. In fact, Chinemo bought these things not only because he wanted to be fed, but also because he knew that she liked to eat these things. If he came out like this today, she would definitely be depressed. He didn't have time to buy sweets. He was worried that if he took too much time, a certain someone's imagination would run wild. Hence, he bought a bag of chicken strips. At least when she saw food, she wouldn't always droop her ears. Even though she still looked pretty, he felt uncomfortable every time he looked at her. Thinking about that fellow's furry head drooping and her listless look, Chinmo instinctively accelerated to the maximum. The Batmobile sped up very quickly. In an instant, it overtook 4 cars and swept towards the bridge. The night sky of New Yao was revealed at this time. The dazzling lights were like stars in the sky. One could hear the music coming from the sports car. Such a scene gradually faded when they reached the outskirts. The castle in the depths of the forest was always very quiet. But today, this tranquility was too much. There wasn't even a single light. Even the torches outside weren't lit. From afar, only the outline of the castle could be seen. Qin Mo stopped the car. His uninjured hand was still holding the takeaway bag. The moment his eyes saw the castle, there wasn't a trace of warmth in them. He hurried over and pushed open the destroyed door. Even without the light, with his experience, he could see that there were traces of fighting and explosions. Qin Mo had never felt like this before. His entire body stiffened. Then he strode down the basement. The only thing he could think of was that if something had happened, that fellow might have avoided the attack in the basement. But she didn't. There was no one in the basement. Qin Mo forced himself to calm down. Even when he pressed the answer button, his fingers were trembling slightly. Young Master. The shadow guards didn't expect Young Master to turn on the receiver at this time. After all, when he was alone with Young Master Gio, he would definitely block them. Qin Mo took a deep breath. He gripped the staircase railing as if this was the only way to clear his mind. Go and find out which mercenary organization has been mobilized recently. I want to know the results immediately. Hearing the voice on the other end of the earpiece, the shadow guards glanced at each other and immediately replied, yes. They had never heard Young Master order them in such a tone. What exactly happened over there? Probably no one could understand Qin Mo's feelings at this moment. He stood there, as if there was an unbearable emptiness in his chest. He just stood there emptily. At that moment, he thought about many things. The most important thing he thought about was that he shouldn't go out. Even if he wanted to go out, he should bring that person along. Chapter 11:23. It was a nervous pain. Qin Mo pressed down on his head instinctively. The feeling of being drowned in seawater was extremely familiar. It was so familiar that he felt as though he had experienced it himself. It wasn't a dream. Qin Mo endured the pain, but he realized that he couldn't resist it. Fragments of things surged into his mind. The most prominent thing was that there was a voice that sounded like glutinous rice that kept calling him. Momo, don't be shy. We're both girls. It's fine if I look at you. At that time, he had laughed coldly in his heart. Who's a girl? I'm a guy. But the voice couldn't disperse. It was hard for him to resist. Momo, if you ignore me like this, you won't have any friends. Before this person figured out his gender, it was okay for him to remain silent. Who knew that the voice wouldn't stop? Momo, this is all the money I have. It should be enough to buy you. I've checked on the internet. In China, there's a good saying. Money can make the devil push the desert. Momo was stunned. Idiot. Money makes the world go round. Not Mo, that was what he had said. Even he himself didn't know why the final scene had turned into him holding a soft little fist and writing calligraphy on it. It was probably because the voice had said, aren't we both Mo? That was why he had taught the little bean how to write. But he couldn't see the little bean's face. It was probably too painful. Qin Mo wanted to stand up, but he realized that the more he wanted to know, the more he resisted. Only when he felt the pain in his palm did he wake up from the chaotic pain. His eyes were deep and his thin lips seemed to be plated with a layer of white. He looked around. There were still a few computers running. The owner was gone. Yes, gone. The moment Qin Mo thought about how the person who had hugged his waist and seduced him yesterday had disappeared, his heart felt as though it had been hammered. It wasn't painful, but it was so dull that it made it hard for him to breathe. Hence, even though he was smart, he didn't notice the details immediately. Instead, he walked quickly to the ranch closest to the castle. He wanted to ask the people who lived there where his Mrs. Qin had gone. It was the first time he had lost his manners. The knocks on the door were very loud, but after the third knock, there was no one inside. Even the old sports car that was parked in the ranch was gone. Perhaps the owner of the house was afraid that someone would come to visit, so he specifically wrote on the side that he was going on a trip and would not be around in the near future. After reading that sentence, Qin Mo gradually regained his rationality. What a coincidence. This is the time to travel. Chin and Mo took a deep breath, holding on to a certain someone's favorite takeout as he walked back to the castle. This time, he wasn't as impatient as he was last time when he only wanted to see a certain someone. Instead, he focused his attention on the details of the environment. All the cameras in the castle were turned on, which was different from when he left. There were more than 10 downed drones on the floor. He had seen those drones before. The tea set in the living room had disappeared. No debris fell to the ground. In other words, it was taken away by someone. Chin and Mo seemed to have figured something out. He walked to the second floor and opened all the wardrobes. It wasn't just a certain someone's clothes that were missing. 2 of the suits that the old butler usually wore were missing. The suitcase that had been placed under the wardrobe was also missing. No organization would take away the clothes of the kidnappers when they kidnapped them. It seemed like they had planned to leave in advance. Moreover, there were the people lying on the floor. Chin Mo's fingers paused. Before he could take a step, a series of sirens came from outside the castle. The police cars were here, and it was a large number of police cars. The police cars stopped in front of the castle one after another. The headlights shone through the door. One of the police detectives suddenly narrowed his eyes, raised his gun, and shouted, "There's someone inside." However, Chin and Mo didn't seem to hear the sound. He raised his eyes and looked at the camera in the room. There must be a recording on the few computers in the basement. The person inside, raise your hand. I will count down from 10 seconds. If you don't come out within 10 seconds, I have the right to shoot you. 9. Wait a minute. The detective, who had just gotten out of the car, recognized the slender figure that walked out of the castle. He reached out his hands and gestured for everyone to put down their guns. We're on the same side. On the same side? The detectives couldn't believe that someone had arrived earlier than them. In fact, the detective was full of questions too. He walked to Chin Mo's side. The moment you left, I received a call from the higher-ups saying that there were gunshots here. However, we weren't sure, so we came over to take a look. Why are you here, Chin? Could he predict it in advance? Or did he calculate it? After all, Chin was an expert in this field. Could it be that the incident here was related to the maiden's sacrifice? If that was the case, things were serious. What kind of clue did Chin think of to come here? With that thought, the detective's expression turned serious. But very quickly, he realized that Chin Mo's gaze wasn't on him. He seemed to be in a daze. Chin? He called again. There was still no response, until he was wondering if he had disturbed Chin Mo's thoughts. A familiar, deep voice rang in his ears. Get your men to move the people lying inside. Don't touch anything in the castle. Don't touch anything? The detective frowned. If we don't touch anything, we won't be able to investigate the scene. Chin Mo's expression was still the same. No one could tell if he was happy or angry. His tone was calm. Before you came, I had already investigated. It was an invasion by mercenaries. With that, he threw something to the detective. Help me investigate which organization this is. Besides, this castle belongs to my wife. I will be staying here in the future. You can ask me directly if you want any information. Move the people away and get your men to go back. She doesn't like to be disturbed. When the detective heard this, his instincts told him that someone was taking revenge on Chin and Mo. He immediately said, Chin, your wife? I will look for her myself. Chin and Mo interrupted him. The detective was even more certain of his guess. As expected, Chin was involved in the maiden's sacrifice case. That was why he was being targeted. But when did Chin have a wife? Why hadn't he heard of it? If this hadn't happened, he would have been shocked and wanted to find out more about it. But now he wouldn't ask. He definitely wasn't in the mood to talk about it. The only thing he could do was to follow Chin Mo's instructions and get his men to clear the scene. Any mercenary group would be extremely cruel and ruthless. The chief inspector looked at the people being carried out and imagined a scene. There were probably too many mercenaries. After fighting for a while, they didn't have the ability to resist, and a beautiful young lady was taken away. The detective couldn't bear to think about what happened next. He just said to Chin and Mo, when the organization is found, I will report to the higher-ups and get them to send people to look for her. Don't worry, we will definitely find her. There's no need. Unexpectedly, that person gave him this word. The detective didn't understand. What was Chin thinking? Could it be? There was indeed a situation. If the police didn't take action, the other party wouldn't kill the hostage. That meant that Sheen was probably worried about this when he said he wanted to look for her himself. The detective thought through the situation according to his usual way of thinking. He patted Chin Mo's shoulder. "Let me know if you need anything." "Okay." Chin Mo was obviously distracted. The more the detective looked at Chin Mo, the more he felt an indescribable feeling. It was as though Chin Mo had been hollowed out and didn't speak much. Even though he didn't speak much in the past, the concept was different. It would take some time to clear the scene. The detective was led astray by his own thoughts. In addition, he kept thinking about the phrase, "my wife's castle." Hence, he didn't notice the minute details. Before he left, he suggested that 2 men stay behind to protect Chin Mo. Chin Mo stuffed a hand into his pocket, seemingly in a daze. When he heard the detective's words, he replied, "There's no need. My men will be here soon. They're just around here." "All right." The detective didn't force it. After all, he was clear about Chin Mo's identity and ability. After getting his men into the car, he bade farewell to Chin Mo. The report was a little difficult to type, but such mercenary revenge was indeed common overseas. As a police car disappeared, the castle returned to its nighttime tranquility. The castle returned to the silence of the night. 2 of the chandeliers in the hall were broken, but it didn't affect the overall lighting. Chin Mo stood there, looking at the tracks left by the motorcycle in the courtyard. He turned his handsome face, elegant and noble. Then, he was about to take a step forward. The Lamborghini, which was parked at the side and hadn't been turned off, emitted a sound. "I can't detect Master's presence. Can you tell me what happened? Why were there so many police cars here? There have never been any police cars here before." In the past, it and its master's daily routine was to get rid of the police cars. Why were there police cars in the castle? "She isn't here." Chin Mo walked towards the Lamborghini. It seemed as though he had the strength to continue speaking after hearing the sound around him. The smart navigation system rippled. What happened to those police cars? The castle was attacked. Chin Mo summarized everything in one sentence. "Mercenaries." The smart navigation system rippled even stronger. "Are you saying that Master was discovered by some enemies?" But under normal circumstances, Master wouldn't just sit and wait for death. Indeed, she didn't sit and wait for death. Chin Mo turned his head, his eyes as clear as water, but very deep. His voice was faint in the night. "She just left." Chapter 1124. Unexpectedly, the navigation system heard the word desolation in that voice. Chin Mo's men arrived quickly, like shadows. The first thing he did was to return the phone to young Master. Now that young Master didn't have to pretend to be kidnapped by young Master Geo, the receiver was useless. However, the shadows felt that their young master was different from when he first arrived, but they couldn't pinpoint the exact difference. They saw their young master sitting on the sofa, holding the phone in his hand as though he was waiting for some news. The shadows thought that young master would return to the Yin family since old master had come to America from China. But after waiting for a long time, there was no movement from young master. Was he planning to wait in the castle for the entire night? The shadows exchanged glances and found a position to stand guard. The castle was extremely quiet. The sound of the clock ticking could be heard clearly. From 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning, and from 3 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the morning, the hour hand moved through one grid after another. Even when the sky started to brighten, Chin Mo's phone didn't ring. There wasn't even a message. He was waiting. He was waiting for a certain person to contact him. However, the special ringtone that was specially set for a certain person seemed to have disappeared. Chin Mo stood up and made a call back to China. The first thing he said was, "I want to know Hoshino's current location." Magician picked up the call. He thought that his boss wouldn't call him before he found a way to find Hoshino. But the truth proved that he was too naive. "I lost him." Chin Mo's fingers tightened when he heard the 3 words. Magician wore his earpiece and looked at the crowd around him. "I followed him to Tokyo. I thought he was here, but when I came to my senses, I realized that he had bought a ticket to America. I found a flight number. I'll see if I can get our men to stop him. The moment he heard the two words, America, Chin Mo could roughly guess some things. He had never hated his ability to make deductions as much as he did right now. It was obvious that Hoshino was here to meet up. The attack was sudden and perhaps unexpected. But to leave the castle and not to bring him along, this was a decision that person had made long ago. Everything was so neat and tidy, which meant that they didn't leave because of the attack. They just left a little earlier than planned. At this thought, Chin Mo's gaze dimmed. It wasn't like before, where it would always carry a clear and cold glint, like an unsheathed snow sword. Magician waited for a long time, but didn't get a response from his boss. He couldn't help but turn his head and call out, "Boss." After what felt like a long time, the other side replied with 3 plain words, "There's no need." His dressing style had also changed. Who would have thought that a person who called him grandfather every day would look so good in a suit? "Master, I have to apply for leave today." Lin Feng finished the last mouthful of porridge and raised his head to look at the person who had brought him. The man ate slowly. He was still flipping through the documents in his hands. When he heard Lin Feng's words, he frowned and said, "You made this captain. It will end after lunch with the investor. Why are you telling me that you want to apply for leave at such a crucial time?" "My best childhood friend is leaving the country today." Lin Feng shifted his gaze. "I have to send him off." The man wanted to say something, but the phone in his hand rang. It was the old CEO. He was coughing when he spoke. After listening to the content, the man glanced at Lin Feng. He praised him and said faintly, "It seems like you didn't run away from home to work, young Master Lin." Lin Feng choked. He felt slightly guilty. The man didn't say much. "There's still one more night. Once you're done, hurry over. Even if you're young Master Lin, you have to be there when it's time to drink." "No problem." Honestly, he was older than him and had a stronger aura. But Lin Feng wasn't afraid. Since he had started from the bottom, he wanted to learn something from this person. After all, this person was famous in the business circle. After leaving the breakfast shop, Lin Feng started to call Bojio. He wanted to ask Little Spade what he should say since Yun was leaving, but Bojio's phone rang. Unexpectedly, Bojio's phone was switched off. Lin Feng had just frowned when he received a message from the Empress Dowager, whose flight is in the afternoon. "Let's have a family gathering." Lin Feng replied neatly, "Okay." He then asked, "Oh right, Mom, where are we going?" Mother Lin probably felt that her son was hopeless, so she called him back. "Say, I'm so smart and beautiful. How'd I give birth to such a stupid son like you?" "Same place, private room. Almost everyone is here. We're just waiting for you." "Sure, I'll head over now," Lin Feng replied. "Smart and beautiful Madam Lin. Hurry." Mother Lin smiled. "Do you want to talk to who?" "It's okay, I'll drive." Lin Feng could vaguely hear the commotion over there. It was Yunhu's voice. Even though it was soft, he could hear it clearly. The call ended quickly. She was probably afraid that if Yunhu really picked up, they would have an awkward conversation. Lin Feng didn't know that Yunhu was already on the phone. When he heard the busy tone, his fingers paused. "Annie," he hung up. Mother Lin was happy today. She didn't notice Yunhu's emotions. He's been busy these 2 days. He probably hasn't finished his work. "Auntie," Yunhu opened his mouth as if he wanted to ask something. Mother Lin turned her head. Yunhu knew some things that weren't suitable for the elders. "Your sleeve." His face was still extremely good-looking, giving off a sense of vitality and beauty. But now, he looked more like a man, especially when he lifted his lids and smiled. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit. He was different from the Lin Feng in his impression. Yunhu couldn't tell if this was good or bad. No matter what this fellow was like, it seemed to be able to affect all his emotions at the first moment. But similarly, he could clearly feel one thing. He was really losing this fellow. He was losing bit by bit, but there was nothing he could do. Lin Feng saw Yunhu enter. He pulled out the chair beside him and was about to chat with him before he left. He didn't want their relationship to fade after Yunhu went there. That was why he had been avoiding Yunhu recently. Just as he was about to speak, Yunhu's phone rang. Even though he turned off the screen, Lin Feng could roughly guess who it was. He didn't say much. He raised his wine glass, his dark eyes bright. "Ooh, have a safe trip." It seemed to be the safest way to say it. The thoughts that occasionally bubbled up in his heart were also suppressed by this cup of wine. The two of them sat together and didn't speak much. Because they were about to leave, everyone's attention was on Yin-Hu. They didn't notice the difference in the atmosphere between the two of them. Even if they felt that the atmosphere was different, they thought it was normal. After all, the two of them grew up together. If one of them was leaving, the other would definitely be quiet. The atmosphere lasted until they reached the airport. The whole family was sending one person off. There seemed to be no place for Lin Feng. No matter how well Madame Yin educated her son, she was just an ordinary mother. Even though her son had been self-disciplined and independent since young, she still gave him a series of instructions. Separated by the crowd, Yin-Hu glanced up and met the smiling face. That person seemed to have received a sudden call. He turned his head to pick it up. Yin-Hu knew the huge gap in his heart at that moment. Even if that person was still there, he couldn't feel it. He probably couldn't take it anymore. Yin-Hu reached out and grabbed on a Lin Feng, who wanted to find a place to talk on the phone. Lin Feng's eyes widened. He froze because of the sudden hug. There were many people at the airport saying their goodbyes. This way, no one would be able to see through the brothers' embrace. But the man on the other end of the phone noticed the pause. He arched a brow and asked, "Lin Feng?" Since they were so close, Yin-Hu obviously heard the commotion. He seemed to have done it on purpose, his voice rising. "When I'm overseas, you should know your place in the country. Don't fool around all the time." In the past, Yin-Hu always said that to Lin Feng. The naive Lin Feng didn't think there was anything wrong with it. But in the man's ears, it had a different meaning. It was a warning that all men understood. The man paused for a moment. He hung up and glanced at the information on the table. There was Lin Feng's photo on the information. He was indeed interested in this, but he wasn't blind. He could tell that Lin Feng would occasionally stop to look at his phone when he wasn't busy. Being interested didn't mean that he had to snatch it. He was a man of integrity in this regard. The person on the other end of the phone was obviously warning the wrong person. Rather than warning him, he might as well warn some girls. Young Master Lin was a straight man. Lin Feng was indeed straight. He couldn't think of any other meaning. "I have to take time out every day to play games. Supreme Alliance lacks people. I'll leave after we recruit more people. I don't have time to fool around. As for you," Lin Feng wanted to say that Yun, who was already taken, it wasn't good for him to keep hugging him, but he felt that he was being pretentious. For a moment, he was jealous of the person who could go overseas with him. But the more Lin Feng worked in society, the more he understood that he and Yun, who had nothing to talk about. Just like today's project. If it was in the past, when his grandfather was still in power, it wouldn't have been so difficult. Perhaps after Yin-Hu came back, he could get a project with just one sentence. But Lin Feng didn't want that. Simply put, he couldn't accompany Yin-Hu. They could only talk about romance. The Lin family was no longer the Lin family of the past, and Yin-Hu had someone to accompany him. It was best to retreat to the position of good friend. It was best for everyone. "What about me?" Yin-Hu glanced at the person standing in front of him, his gaze deep and unfathomable. Lin Feng hooked his long arm. "As for you, jump over the wall when you have time. There are films there that we don't have here. Also, wait for your wedding candy before we come back to play." Yin-Hu didn't say anything. The boarding announcement had already started. He didn't know how he had entered the security check. He only knew that the relationship that seemed to have eased up was actually very distant. It made him understand that he and Lin Feng couldn't go back to the past. More than once, he thought that it would be good if he could bear with it until he went overseas. But Yin-Hu understood. If he really liked someone, he couldn't bear it. Chapter 1125. There was a huge transparent window at the international airport, allowing him to clearly see the plane taking off. His phone was still ringing in his pocket. Lin Feng moved, but didn't pick up the call immediately. Instead, he sat on the chair, as though this was the only way to offset the emptiness that seemed to drown him. Huzi had really left. When Lin Feng lowered his head, his lips curved upwards. Then he reached out to press the stray hair on his forehead. Mother Lin and the others hadn't left yet. When she turned around and saw Lin Feng in this state, A trace of surprise flashed across her eyes. But on second thought, the two of them had been good friends since they were young. How could he not feel sad after Huzi left? On this day, even the esports media sent news. The title was, "Where should Supreme Alliance go from here?" Some fans who were still hoping that Almighty Yun would stay understood that the outcome was set. Supreme Alliance's current situation was undoubtedly difficult. Some people said that Supreme Alliance's current strength wasn't suitable for the Asian Cup. They were afraid that their current strength was only at the provincial level. At this moment, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Supreme Alliance was besieged on all sides. But right at this moment, a netizen who claimed to be a fan of Spade Z posted an unofficial post. The content was about the things that Spade Z had done. Firstly, I'm not here to criticize him. I used to be his fan, but in the end, I can only say that different people can't make plans together. Firstly, let's talk about Spade Z's operations. I admit that he's indeed amazing, but other than that, I don't really care about this person. I just feel wrong for our group owner. He spent 2,000 to 3,000 on Spade Z the moment he arrived. It's really... The netizens felt that Spade Z was indeed too much. They all followed the post. Some netizens understood the logical loophole in the post. After all, they were still doubtful. Big Spade doesn't have a group, right? Everyone knows about this. Besides, you said at the start that you weren't here to criticize him. But why is it that the entire post is criticizing him? Forget it. I'm just complaining. The original poster chuckled. Back then, Spade Z told me to study hard and protect myself. Now that I think about it, I'm really too young. This person relied on this to gain so many fans. At this moment, another person followed. I really don't understand why Spade Z is like this. I'm speechless. Some of them clicked on it out of curiosity. After they clicked on it, they asked, asking you to study hard is also a black mark? After the post went viral, it was bound to be seen by the fans. From the OP's explanation, he didn't tell the truth at all. Back then, you guys created a private chat group to recruit people. After recruiting people, you made a big fuss there and even complained to the management. Why didn't the OP say all this? The increase in fans is due to the official recommendation. You are indeed too young. Ha! Why do I feel like laughing when I see the words official recommendation? Young, indeed young. Let's not talk about other things. As an esports player, you don't need to substitute in. You just need to play well in every match. Don't you cherish your fans? Are you a fan? The one who played with Big Spade, drifting by. All right, let's sink into Chieba. Let's go play on the official platform. Originally, this matter was basically over. However, another netizen appeared and used that post to reply with a title. I really like Spade Z, but whether it's from an emotional or logical point of view, I just want to know why Spade Z lied to us. Almost instantly, the entire official Weibo was filled with comments criticizing Spade Z for dressing up as a man. Fu Ximing didn't need to do anything at all. He just followed what that person had taught him and used a few people in the group to stir up this topic. It was such a huge matter. As the ace manager of Supreme Alliance and the director of the Qin Group, it was impossible for Feng Ying not to know about it. In just a short hour, the entire public relations team was in a state of panic. At this moment, the media seemed to have smelled the news and came up with a series of reports. Fu Ximing was in charge of stirring up the news online, while Fu Zhongyi was in charge of contacting the media. It was a two-pronged approach to achieve the results he wanted. In reality, under such circumstances, be it Bo Jiu or Qin Mo, they wouldn't be this anxious. But these two people were not there. Feng, he tried to contact his previous contacts, but he couldn't get in touch with anyone. At this stage, everyone was probably hiding from Supreme Alliance. The media, the team, and some investors who had worked with him before. The public relations department was still observing the situation on the computer. They glanced up and asked anxiously, "Boss Feng, should we release a statement? This is ridiculous. How can Big Spade be a girl?" The public relations department thought they would receive Feng Yi's approval immediately. Unexpectedly, CEO Feng, who was standing there, raised his eyes. His voice was light but heavy. She is. 2 words. All the employees of the club were shocked. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. But the public opinion isn't right. Feng Yi walked over. Ever since Spade Z joined Supreme Alliance, she has always presented herself as a boy. It has to do with her family, not to attract fans. The staff were still in a daze. Big Spade a girl? They still found it a little surreal. After all, that person didn't look like a girl at all. But from another perspective, if Spade Z was really a girl, to them, it would be a devastating backlash. Boss Feng, what should we do now? Feng, he enunciated each word. Tell us the truth. But if that's the case, the staff wanted to say something. Feng, he glanced at him. I believe if little Spade was here, she would choose to do the same. There is nothing to hide. She is a girl, but she has been raised as a boy since young because she has an ungrateful father. Putting the affair aside, everyone in the business circle knows how Fu Zhongyi abandoned his wife. In order to get her to give up her shares, he forced her away along with his mistress. If little Spade hadn't been a boy, the mother and son wouldn't have survived. Ever since Spade Z debuted, the only thing that can't be said is that she disguised as a boy. All the malicious lies are built on the basis of hurting others. Little Spade has never hurt anyone, but no one will understand. The public relations staff knew what the people on the internet were like. They didn't care about things that weren't allowed to hurt others. They didn't care. They acted as an accomplice. They pushed those who wanted to seek justice into the dust. But when it came to other people's privacy, they felt that it was a huge mistake. They wanted the victim to be perfect. They couldn't denounce it because it meant that they were uncultured. They couldn't even have the slightest flaw. They supported those who sucked human blood and climbed up without any morals. The ordinary public relations staff understood this logic. As Feng Yi, how could he not understand? The truth isn't for others to understand, but for a clear conscience. Feng Yi turned, his gaze never leaving. He had to say it. The hype online was too much. There was an overwhelming amount of news, layer after layer. The people in the industry understood that Supreme Alliance just had to deny the contents of the post. After all, they didn't have any concrete evidence. But out of everyone's expectations, Supreme Alliance admitted it and explained the truth. Seeing this, the fans exploded. Supreme Alliance was in an unprecedented crisis. Just as expected, countless people were trying to distance themselves from Supreme Alliance. Some clubs were also interested in this point. They contacted Shui Yaoyao directly, saying that they had their eyes on her future development and even offered a good price. They wanted to take the opportunity to poach Shui Yaoyao. You can see the situation now. Even if Supreme Alliance has the financial support of the Qin Group, it won't last long. In fact, it isn't just Spade Z's matter. Supreme Alliance is already falling apart. If you continue to stay in Supreme Alliance, you will only perish with Supreme Alliance. It will be different if you come to our team. You will get good resources and fame. Shui Yaoyao was still wearing Supreme Alliance's uniform. She was naturally shy and perhaps had a trace of inferiority, but at this moment, these words seemed to have disappeared from her. I will stay in the Supreme Alliance. As long as I'm still playing, I will only stay in the Supreme Alliance. Unless there comes a day when I don't play anymore, or if the Supreme Alliance disbands like you said. I might want to change places, but the Supreme Alliance is still here. Shui Yaoyao lowered her head, looking at the media surrounding the entrance of the club, pausing between each word. And Supreme Alliance will not perish. You don't know what's good for you. The club manager hung up the phone. If he couldn't poach Shui Yaoyao, he could poach someone else. Shui Yaoyao was just a backup, but he didn't expect that all the answers would be the same. That wasn't all. What was even more unexpected was that Supreme Alliance was left with less than one team. At this moment, everyone walked to the entertainment department. Shui Yaoyao, Feng Shang, Inwu Yao, Coco. Some of the other team members watching the live stream felt that these people were stupid. At this time, shouldn't they avoid arousing suspicion and quickly draw a clear line between them? Why were they still standing in front of the door? When the media saw them, they were like mosquitoes that finally saw fresh blood. All of them rushed over. Regarding the fact that Spade Z is actually a girl, what are your reactions after hearing about it? Do you feel cheated? How does Supreme Alliance plan to deal with this person? Will she be banned from the competition? In Wu Yao was the oldest among them. He still looked indolent, but this time his eyes lit up. He glanced at his teammates standing beside him and then looked at the camera. We already knew that Spade Z is a girl. To us, it doesn't matter if Spade Z is a boy or a girl. In order for Supreme Alliance to win, she charged into the opponent's blood pool with injuries and fought 1-5. She didn't let down the title of vice captain. She is a qualified esports player. You ask us if we feel cheated? Back when that youngster found us and brought us to the esports arena, to us, she was the person who pulled us out of the abyss. Now, we are all waiting for her return. Words for the readers. After the storm comes the sweetness. Farewell, my wives. Chapter 11:27. At this stage, the Supreme Alliance still dared to say such things? The media was shocked. After all, this meant that it wasn't just these people who were affected by such a negative topic. Other teams might even give up on their invitation, which meant that they were risking their careers. After saying such words, they might even lose everything. Phony knew that it was impulsive, young, and self-destructive. But at the same time, he knew it clearly. Supreme Alliance was such a group of people. They weren't afraid of offending anyone and didn't care about the public opinion. Even if they knew that some things they did would cause others to lose their fans, they would still do it, because that was the only way they wouldn't go against their conscience. Fighting side by side. These 4 words weren't just said casually. There were no surprises. In Wu Yao and Coco's livestream was cut off. The investors cut off all publicity for these 2 people. The reason was simple. They had designed a script for them to respond during the live stream, but they didn't listen and didn't expose Spade Z's scandals. What was the point? That day, In Wu Yao and Coco were politely invited out by a certain livestream platform. Some platforms would use such methods to punish professional players. There was one good thing about it. After all, they were esports players and not livestream celebrities. But there would still be an impact. Without publicity on the internet, it meant that their popularity would drop. This was what the livestream platform was doing. They had even forgotten that they were the ones who had initiated the contract negotiations. Now, they were just adding insult to injury. Feng, he had expected all of this. When he went to fetch them, he was still in his suit, his smile perfect. No matter what stage he was in the business world, he couldn't fall first. He couldn't be the first to fall, because he still had people to take care of. On the other hand, the operations manager of the other party chuckled. CEO Feng, we're all doing business. Tell me, why don't the people you bring understand the relationship between interests? What's the use of disobedient esports players who can't earn money? To be honest, don't you see what you're like now? Your popularity is almost gone, and your operations are even worse. Your main members are all gone. Who can you beat now? To put it bluntly, it's just a useless team that's past its prime. Wouldn't it be better to take this opportunity to get some paint? Feng, he held a cigarette between his fingers. He glanced at the other party and extinguished the cigarette. He stood up and smiled. Director Lee, you're right. My team member has a flaw. He's too conscientious. Compared to you, his bottom line is too high. You. Boss Lee narrowed his eyes and scoffed, shouting at the 3 figures. Supreme Alliance is past its prime and will be worthless in the future. Phony, why are you still so proud? His heart was filled with regret, but it was all too late. But he didn't understand. There wasn't anyone else here. How did Spade Z know what they were talking about? Others didn't understand. To Bo Gio, it was easy as long as there was a camera. Bosley assumed Supreme Alliance was over and didn't need to be particular. He hadn't said it in his office. Instead, he had said it outside. Of course, there would be a camera. When the news came out, Bo Gio, who was in America, immediately found a way to get Shui Weiyao and the others' itineraries. She had wanted to tell them to ignore her and to say whatever was best for her. But after going through the internet, she saw the scene just now. At that time, Hoshino had been sitting behind Bo Gio. His gaze had landed on the screen. You want to interfere? Teach him a lesson. Bo Gio's voice was calm, but her eyes were dark. Supreme Alliance shouldn't be despised because of her. Besides, the other party didn't have the right to embarrass Supreme Alliance. After that, there was this live stream. Her eyes were very dark. She looked straight into the camera. You can ask anything you want in a live stream room until you vent your anger by spamming the bullet screen. Everyone thought that the fans would definitely flood the live stream at this time. But in reality, it was exploding. But they had sent diamonds and flowers. They had sent planes and cruises. There was also a picture posted in the live stream room. It was the signature list of almost 1,000 people. There was a sentence written on the front of the list. Our fan, Big Spade, entered the wilderness alone. Her maneuvers are top-notch, and her positioning is outstanding. As an esports player, her skills are passable. As an ordinary person, she objected to the unfairness of the game. In the past, we always fantasized about marrying such a person. This handsome youngster, from his talent to his character, as well as that overconfident tone of his voice, we liked everything about him. Her special family forced her to dress as a man. Now, we just want her to know that as long as she doesn't hurt anyone, all her privacy belongs to her, and we will always be Spade fans. On the back, there were many girls' signatures. At the end, there was a huge heart circled. There were people scolding her. They couldn't accept the fact that their idol was a girl. But they hadn't expected the Supreme Alliance to speak up for Spade Z. They hadn't expected the people from Xiangnan to stand up for her. First, it was Beauty Luo. I'm so shocked I dropped my mouse. Why is my almighty a girl? She's so cool. I love her even more. Next, it was Captain Xiao. She doesn't use substitutes, doesn't imitate others, and treats every match seriously. This has nothing to do with gender. Finally, it was Zhao Sanpeng. F***CK. You're telling me that I couldn't retaliate because of a girl? I, the #1 tank in the country, am not convinced. Little Spade, hurry up and come back. Master Zhao is going to torture you. Not to mention Rao Rong, who had disappeared ever since that incident. Many people were trying to get him back online. He had only said one sentence, but it had blown the internet apart. From today onwards, I will join Supreme Alliance. My game ID will be Supreme Alliance Rao Rong. Return. It wasn't just a return. At this moment, he had joined a team that was in dire straits. Many fans couldn't understand. Almighty Rao, why? Join another team. Really, it's so messy. Don't join Supreme Alliance. Rao Rong replied. From a personal point of view, I want to repay Spade Z's kindness. From a professional player's point of view, Supreme Alliance is the team I want to join the most. They won't abandon someone just because of a scandal. They're still unyielding. Since Rao Rong was here, how could the other not be here? His tone was serious. I have terminated my contract and will be joining Supreme Alliance. My game ID will be Supreme Alliance's most handsome. The addition of two almighties. It wasn't just the netizens and media that hadn't expected it. Even the experienced Feng Yi paused, unable to believe what he had heard. He turned towards his assistant beside him. What did you say? The assistant continued agitatedly. It's true. Boss Qin sent over their contracts personally. From now on, Almighty Rao and Almighty Rao will be Supreme Alliances. Boss Qin. Feng Yi listened attentively, turning to call Qin Mo Boss Qin, Rao Rong, and Almighty Rao. Qin Mo didn't return to China. He sat in front of his computer, watching the video, his gaze deepening. I just made a call. They joined Supreme Alliance willingly. It wasn't that simple. This was a revival from the dead. Before this, when Shui Yaoyao was at the Zhua family's house, a few girls had come over for a barbecue. Supreme Alliance is past its prime. I think it won't be long before they return to their original state. She deserved it for being so rude to us previously. She thinks she's a god just by playing a game. She's just an ugly duckling. She should look at herself in the mirror. All right, let's just wait for a certain someone to be past her prime. After reading the explosive news, all of them stopped talking. Other than Rao Rong and the others, there was also Yun, who's official Weibo. I'm taking a leave of absence from school. I'll be back in 3 days. I heard that Supreme Alliance can't even beat a provincial team. I'm back. The last 4 words. It was simple. However, it just so happened that countless people who read that message couldn't help but have tears in their eyes and something violently surged out of their chests. I'm back. What did it mean? Only the fans who had followed them all the way knew. If they hadn't experienced it, they wouldn't have been moved and wouldn't understand the meaning behind it. Everyone was terrified, afraid of getting into trouble. Not only did they not get rid of themselves, but they also gathered from all over the world, returning to the same city. They wanted to tell everyone that Supreme Alliance hadn't fallen. Even if they were to fall into the dust, as long as they were needed, they would be able to fight alongside them. Those who wanted to be tarnished were still tarnished. Those who splashed dirty water were still there. But at this moment, be it Shui Yao Yao, In Wu Yao, Coco, or Feng Shang, they weren't thinking about these things. They were thinking about the Asian Cup. They could still play with their teammates. The public opinion wouldn't change. So what? Those who cared were still there. That seemed to be the case. When you didn't experience darkness, you wouldn't realize how gentle the world was. Hoshino watched as the youngster sat in front of the computer, not moving for a long time. He laughed lightly. You want to go back? MH, Bo Jio replied, turning her head. But I can't go back. Don't be so sure. Hoshino reached out, placing his palm on her head, rubbing it back and forth. Once you're done here, go back and play a game. Don't forget, you still owe me a duel. Bo Jio glanced over, wanted to change the topic. Some things were stuck in a deadlock. We can have a duel now. Z. Suddenly, Hoshino lowered his voice. Bo Jio glanced up, looking at him in confusion. Hoshino looked at her, his eyes as clear as water. That's the real you, sitting beside Chin Mo, waving the mouse recklessly, invading the wilderness to cooperate with that person, smiling brightly, eyes shining brightly. That's the real you. Only when you're beside Chin Mo, that's the real you. Treat yourself better, otherwise, how can I be at ease? Chapter 1128. Before Bo Jio could react, Hoshino reached for his jacket, his tone changing. Should we change our method of tracking the culprit of the maiden sacrifice? I bought some information on the Fifth Avenue before coming. All right. Bo Jio had long sensed that something was amiss. It seemed like a simple gathering of people with bad values, but in reality, the consequences were getting worse and worse. This serial suicide case involved hypnosis. Fan Jiao wouldn't be able to do it alone. Before she left, Bo Jio paused, glancing at the phone that was switched off. In the end, she walked to the phone booth downstairs and made an international call. The person on the other end picked up quickly, probably because it wasn't a domestic number. Hello, Jio? Is this Jio? The signal wasn't good and the call was intermittent, but she could still recognize He Honghua's voice. Bo Jio knew that He Honghua would be worried after such a huge incident. There were many times when she couldn't just leave like that because she was the one in charge of this body. She also knew how much the mother loved her daughter. Whenever she faced He Honghua, Bo Jio would always feel guilty. She didn't know how to tell He Honghua that the child she had missed so much was no longer around. If Bo Jio had wanted to tell He Honghua everything from the bottom of her heart, after hearing He Honghua's tone, she dispelled the thought. It's me. Bo Jio knew that in order to make someone happy, she had to come up with countless lies. She hated lying the most, but this was the most she had ever lied to He Honghua. Madam He, don't worry, I'm fine. I'm doing well in America. My phone fell into the water during filming and the call malfunctioned. After hearing this, He Honghua hesitated for a long time before saying, Jio, why don't we stop playing games? He Honghua wasn't someone who cared about what others said. Bo Jio knew this better than anyone else. She came from a village, and because of her background, no matter what she did, even if her husband was stolen, people would blame her. She had a loud voice like a country bumpkin. But even so, she did not admit defeat. Others said that she had no qualities and could not do anything, so she could not be a shareholder of Fu's enterprise. No one thought about it. The Fu family startup capital was hers, so she had every right to do it. After being chased out, how many times had he been slandered? It could be said that everything Bo Jio had suffered wasn't even a tenth of her mother's. After all, from a certain perspective, Bo Jio wasn't at a disadvantage. But what could He Honghua have at that time? Some people use true love as an excuse to plunder. thinking that Fu Zhongyi and Su Mei should be together. Yi Honghua was just a village girl. She should go back to where she came from. Even if it came to that, Yi Honghua gritted her teeth and persevered. To make such a person say, "Joe, why don't we stop playing games?" One could imagine how she was feeling right now. There were some things that Yi Honghua did not understand. Her age was there for all to see. She didn't want her daughter to bear the blame. If you want to scold someone, you can scold her. In fact, every mother's mood was the same. As long as their child was well, it was fine. To a mother, it didn't matter how many times she was cut. But if the knife cut the child, it would be a pain that would cause her to sleep. Bo Jio listened to the pleading voice. She held onto the phone and paused for a moment before replying, "All right, I won't play games." Even those who weren't afraid of rumors had their weaknesses. And Bo Jio's weakness was probably Yi Honghua. There were many times when we asked ourselves why we didn't become bad people. After all, in this world, there were too many people who took over other people's things. As long as they acted pitifully, there would be a bunch of people who would support them. As for those who were dutiful and persevered in their passionate careers, they couldn't even take back what belonged to them. The cost of being a bad person was too low, so low that it was negligible. But as an ordinary person, they would always be bound by something called conscience. When Bo Jio hung up, Hoshino was standing outside the phone booth. He glanced up and glanced at her, frowning. "Just to report that I'm safe." Bo Jio didn't explain the details of the call. Her emotions didn't seem to be affected. But there was one sentence that Qin Mo didn't say casually. He had joined the esports industry because he liked someone who liked to play games. As Bo Jio herself, she liked the feeling of fighting alongside the other members of the Supreme Alliance. But every time they gave up on something they liked, it was definitely because of their weaknesses. If Bo Jio appeared in front of others, they wouldn't be able to tell anything. But Hoshino wasn't just anyone. From that back view, he could clearly see the word desolate. But that feeling disappeared quickly. After a turn and entering the sports car, Bo Jio turned back into Z, the young lord of the hacker world, who could take on everything. She turned the steering wheel with one hand and tapped on the GPS. After confirming the route, she drove out of the main road. She drove at a high speed, but she avoided all the cars perfectly. When she brushed past the cars, the sound of the wind could still be heard. In China, many people were waiting for Spade Z's reply. After all, the direction of the public opinion had changed. But no matter how many messages they left, Spade Z seemed to have disappeared. Even Lin Feng realized a problem. He really couldn't contact Little Spade. It wasn't that he didn't receive his call, but that number seemed to have been automatically discarded. When the incident had happened, Lin Feng had been trying to contact Bo Jio. Even the news of Yunhu's return had only been known after he had reached home and opened his official Weibo. His fans had tagged him. Lin Feng stilled. He gripped the mouse in his hand. He hadn't had the time to remove his suit, so he froze in front of the computer screen in a daze. It was probably because he hadn't expected Yunhu to return so quickly. It had only been a day. Sometimes, he couldn't help but think about what kind of life he would have in the future. One of his plans was to fly over to see Yunhu when they met again. He must have thought too highly of himself. Even if he wanted to see him, he wouldn't let him know. Lin Feng couldn't stand the scene of them exchanging pleasantries when they had nothing to say, especially between the two of them. Besides, other than Yunhu, there must be someone else standing beside him. Once he thought about this, Lin Feng felt that no matter how powerful his imagination was, he shouldn't fly over. After all, Yunhu had started his new life. But today, he actually said he was coming back. Of course, Lin Feng was in a daze. After a while, he grabbed his wallet and headed to the team to take a look. The moment he reached the ground floor, he bumped into Yunhu's mother. The Lin family had moved out of the courtyard. It was obvious that there was a reason for Madame Yun to make such a trip. In the living room, she held a cup of tea from her good friend, Madame Yun, and shook her head. "I don't know what to say about Yunhu. He has been planning to study abroad for so long. In order to get the only spot in the school, he has been working hard ever since he was a freshman. He would often look for me to discuss some problems. It wasn't easy for him to finally get the spot, but right before the plane took off, he called my phone and told me in a tone that I had never heard before that he didn't want to study abroad anymore. He would apply for a leave of absence this time. I thought he was just joking, but I never expected him to really. Lady Yin couldn't say anything else after that. Her son had never caused any trouble since he was young. He was so outstanding that she didn't have to worry about him. Mrs. Yin had never expected Yun Hu to make such a huge decision on his own. What's more, he had made the decision to leave school. Before Yun Hu left, she had specially informed her friends there. Since he was teaching at that university, he would definitely be of help to her son's future development. No one could understand her feelings. When she called her son to ask if he had settled down, she was surprised. However, this was the answer he got. Don't you think it's ridiculous? He actually came back just to play games. Mother Lin sat opposite her. Actually, sometimes I feel that we are too cruel. We always think from our own point of view that this is the most useful thing for our child's future. However, we forget to ask what exactly they like. Chapter 1129. Let's do this. We'll tell Hu Zi what happened at the airport yesterday and ask him when he'll be back. Mama Lin took out her phone and made a call. Lin Feng immediately pounced over and snatched the phone. Mom, Hu Zi is very busy with his suspension. Don't disturb him. What kind of joke was this? Did he have to tell Yin Hu about such an embarrassing thing? Wouldn't the mature image that he had built up over the years be completely ruined? She really wasn't his real mother. Who would have thought that Lin Feng could stop the Empress Dowager, but not the other person? While the two of them were talking, Yun's side had already connected with the internet call. Walking by the river, Yin Hu was about to settle some follow-up matters. When he saw the voice signal on his WeChat, he was already prepared. His family would come to discuss this matter with him. What Yin Hu didn't expect was that after the call went through, his mother's voice sounded surprisingly good. Son, when are you coming back? Yin Hu paused, arching a brow in surprise. The procedures will take 2 more days. Come back soon. You might not know this, but when you left yesterday, Lin Feng was crying at the airport, Mother Yin said with a smile as she looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was speechless. He could vaguely hear a voice coming from the other side. With a faint smile, "You're crying?" "Yeah, he's crying his heart out." Mother Yun's smile deepened. She was clearly teasing Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked as if he was begging her to stop talking. Before the internet call went through, the heaviness in Yun Hu's heart seemed to have suddenly disappeared. That day at the airport, that person had acted so nonchalantly that he thought he didn't care whether he would leave or not. The maturity that Lin Feng displayed really made him a little flustered at that moment. But now, the momentum in his heart seemed to have landed on the ground. The suffocating feeling that had been pressing on his chest for a long time also disappeared. Mom, tell him for me that I'll be back soon. Lin Feng thought to himself, what's the point of telling me? I can hear you guys on the phone. What a shame. Lin Feng felt that it would be embarrassing if he continued listening. So he stood up and said, I'm going out. Unexpectedly, the voice was heard by the person on the other end of the phone. He's here too? Yin Hu stopped in his tracks. When he relaxed his brows, he gave off a special feeling. The foreign students who were walking along the river turned back. Many people would find it very strange to see foreigners in China. Actually, in other countries, some people would be interested in outstanding Asians. Whether it was his height or appearance, Yin Hu fit the current aesthetic standards. When he stopped to talk on the phone, especially when the corners of his mouth curled up, many of the local girls were discussing. After all, Yin Hu's smile was really handsome. Mom, please give him the phone. Lin Feng, who heard the voice over the phone, immediately grabbed his phone and wanted to escape. Call me now? After Yin Hu found out that he had cried. This was too unmanly. F***CK. Was this what it meant to be a scam? Before Lin Feng could leave, Mother Lin grabbed his collar from behind. In an instant, Lin Feng was pulled back onto the sofa. What? You don't dare to accept? His own mother was trying to goad him into action. As a man, there was nothing he wouldn't dare to accept. Lin Feng reached out to take the phone. At first, he was very domineering. When he heard the voice from the other side, he didn't have enough confidence. I heard that you miss me. When he heard these words, Lin Feng exploded. You are too long-winded. When exactly are you coming back? When he said this, Lin Feng's face was a little uncomfortable. As soon as possible. Yun, who was very calm. Lin Feng, what are you doing? He wanted to hang up the phone as soon as possible. What was the meaning of suddenly calling his name? It was so King awkward. Yun, who tilted his head, the corners of his lips lifting. Are you shy? Who's shy? What are you laughing at? Lin Feng changed the topic. All right, hurry up and settle the paperwork for your suspension. The entire team is waiting for you. I'm hanging up. With that, Lin Feng swiftly ended the call. He didn't give Mama Lin a chance to pull him back and directly strode out. Unexpectedly, the more he walked, the hotter his face became. In the end, he pressed his hand against the wall. It was all Yun-Hu's fault for asking if he was shy. On the other side, Yun-Hu, who had been hung up, couldn't stop smiling. Everyone was guessing who was on the other side of the phone to make him so happy. A few girls who knew how to read the mood had already noticed the eyebrows and gave up trying to strike up a conversation. But from that day onwards, there was one thing. It wasn't just Big Spade. Even Qin Mo seemed to have disappeared. This was the decision given by the Esports Association. Even though Supreme Alliance had improved a lot compared to before, the Asian Cup was different from the domestic competition. They had to send the strongest team in China. The current Supreme Alliance wasn't strong enough. They had to have Qin Mo as their captain. As for Spade Z, her gender didn't affect her participation. This was a piece of good news. To all of Spade Z's fans, they heaved a sigh of relief from the bottom of their hearts. They were most afraid that Spade Z wouldn't be able to continue competing. When Feng Yi heard the news, he loosened his tie after not sleeping for a whole day. He leaned against the office chair and fell asleep with a smile. He knew Supreme Alliance wouldn't stop so easily, representing China in the Asian Cup. That was something he had always wanted to see. Now, it was finally going to happen. This was the closest Supreme Alliance had ever been to their dreams. There was something you didn't know you hadn't tried. You really wanted to reach your destination. You met with many setbacks and even gave up a few times. Now, you were finally going to reach the other side. Actually, ever since the incident started, the fans online were waiting for a reply from Almighty Qin. Such a huge incident had happened. According to Almighty Qin's personality, he would definitely seize the opportunity to release his dog and wolf. However, no one knew why there wasn't any movement. Many people couldn't help but Almighty Qin online. Still, there was no reply. What's going on? Big Spade is a girl. Shouldn't Almighty Qin be happy? Am I the only one who thinks the Almighty has gone missing? I feel like the situation is the same as 3 years ago when Supreme Alliance was participating in the National League. At that time, Almighty Qin seemed to have gone missing too. The one above don't scare me. I'm just guessing it might not be true. When Xiao Jing saw this scene, he put down his exercise, raised his eyes, and called his father, who was in the military. The news he received was top secret. Even he didn't know what it was this time, so he asked him not to ask. When he heard this, Xiao Jing understood. Something big had happened. That's right, something big had happened. The moment he came back from the castle, he saw the military vehicle parked outside the villa before he could even park his car. A man in a white coat with a military uniform inside opened the door and looked at him. Boss, I need to understand your psychological state. Can we talk? At that time, Qin Mo had been driving a black Lamborghini. As a responsible navigation system, it was rather reliable. From his tone, he doesn't seem friendly. The psychologist froze when he heard this. He glanced over at the Lamborghini. What was going on? Even a car could speak now? Where did boss get such a car? He is a bad person. It's normal for him to be hostile. When Qin Mo said this, he didn't alight. He placed his arm on the window, his gaze elegant. I'm not in a good mood. I don't want to talk to you. Every time the psychologist carried out this mission, he felt like breaking down. Boss was really harder to talk to than those criminals. He was so direct. How was he supposed to say it? After some thought, the psychologist decided to ask for help. He turned on the video on his phone. Boss doesn't want to talk to me. What about him? The video wasn't clear. Due to the filming conditions, it was shaky, causing the quality of the image to be especially noisy. This is the only video that the spy we sent to the Golden Triangle sent back before he died. It was a huge drug production base. One could clearly see that the entire area was filled with poppies. The flowers were in full bloom. They could see the patrolling armed mercenaries. Even their eyes carried a unique murderous aura. When they met disobedient farmers, they would use their guns to suppress them. Every one of them wore a mask. Other than the tattoos on their arms, which revealed some information, it was impossible to tell which organization they were from their appearance and clothing. This was because there were too many mercenary organizations like this in the Golden Triangle outside the borders. But no terrorist organization dared to be so arrogant. They didn't just refine and sell poppies. In the video, a group of tourists barged in by mistake. The tourists clearly identified themselves, and when the other party raised their guns, they knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. The mercenaries didn't even bother with them. After a sweep, they shouted, "We killed Chinese people. Those who cut off our livelihood deserve to die." They were speaking in a foreign language. As it was a small language, it sounded arrogant. Someone at the side reminded, "Don't kill Chinese people. If the people over there find out, we will be suppressed. We won't be able to do business in the future. What are you afraid of? They're a group of Chinese pigs. If they are so capable, let them come to the Golden Triangle and kill them. It's nothing to kill a few Chinese tourists." With that, the person raised his hand and swept the tourists who were already lying on the ground. The inhumane way of doing things made the hearts of those who watched the video tremble. Moreover, the people who were killed were their own countrymen. Chin Mo watched the video. His hands, which were placed outside the window, tightened bit by bit. His gaze gradually turned cold. The psychiatrist watched from the side, his gaze probing. Chin Mo didn't need to watch to know what he was thinking. "You don't have to use this video to test me. You just want to see if I'm affected by the hypnosis. I'll say it again. I'm not in a good mood, and I don't want to talk. Just say what you want." The comrade who shot this video has already been sacrificed. We don't know what's going on over there. What's most worrying is that the information sent from over there clearly shows that many people in a school on the border have been psychologically controlled by their leader. The most serious situation is how to protect the hostages. Also, the other two people who went undercover have already betrayed them. Our deployment over there has been destroyed. Boss, General Chin, can't leave the country due to his military rank. He asked me to ask you. You are the only one who can do this mission. Do you agree to return to the army? Chin Mo glanced up and didn't speak. The psychiatrist retracted his probing gaze and said seriously, "Boss, we are all waiting for you to come back." Without light, time passed quickly. Everything was the same as 3 years ago. Old Master sat in the villa, half lying on the sandalwood rocking chair. Through the big window, he could clearly see the military car parked outside. He took a sip of tea and looked at his grandson in front of him. "Have you decided to go with him?" "MH." Chin Mo's voice didn't change at all. Old Master tilted his head. "I thought you had long given up on being a soldier. The company is doing well in your hands, and you're so interested in esports." "No." Chin Mo put down the teacup in his hand. "But I prefer to play games." Old Master sighed. "It seems like I can't persuade you. Go back and ask your father if you're his biological son. He only thought of you when there is no one else going on this mission. I'm most familiar with the terrain around the Golden Triangle. It is the least dangerous for me to carry out this mission. The other party has a psychological expert." Chin Mo stood up and said, "The hostages won't be rescued easily." Old Master felt that it was more like 3 years ago. "You don't have a military rank anymore. If there is a need, I can wear it again at any time." Chin Mo's eyes were dark. "This is also the reason why you let Mother Mary into the Chin family." "Grandfather, I'm the grandson of Madame and also a member of the Chin family." Old Master knew that he wouldn't be able to stop his grandson. After pondering for a moment, he walked to the wooden table, pulled open one of the drawers, and took out an amulet. The amulet seemed to have been around for a long time. "In the past, you would take it every time you went on a mission. I thought you wouldn't need it anymore." Chin Mo took the amulet. Old Master watched as the tall figure disappeared in front of the door. He lifted his head and looked upstairs. The person standing there wasn't anyone else. It was Movie Queenin. She had been there all along. But she knew what kind of mission her son was going on. She was afraid that the moment she appeared, she would stop him. The sound of a car engine rang out. The Lamborghini that was parked outside the villa followed another car into the dark night. Boggio received the same news the next day. The place where information was traded was always unexpected. Many people thought it was done in the dark, but in reality, it wasn't. It was the most prosperous place on Fifth Avenue. In the afternoon, it was simply a shopper's paradise. You could see people of different skin colors shopping here. CK, Louis Vuitton, and other famous brands could be found here. The luxury watch shops were even more dazzling. It wasn't rare for a custom-made watch to be sold for tens of thousands of USD. One of the luxury watch shops was extremely eye-catching because it was filled with an Eastern vibe. The boss was dressed in a traditional Chinese suit. There were only 2 employees in the shop, both of them wearing cheongsams. Wearing a pair of black lace gloves, she adjusted the strap of the watch, but the words that came out of her mouth had nothing to do with the watch at all. For matters in the legal world, this is the number. For matters in the underworld, this is the number. Do you want to ask about the underworld or the legal world? Customers who came to buy watches for the first time would be frightened and leave immediately. Others would be curious and ask more questions. But no matter what kind of customer they were, the rule here was that as long as you had money, you could buy information. Apart from the rules, there were exceptions. A silver-haired youngster in a red t-shirt walked in. One of the employees paused for a moment. She strode over with her slender and fair legs. "Customer, how can I help you?" Boggio raised her hand and pulled the employee's hand over. She placed a silver USB in her palm. The shape of a USB was unique. It was a Z shape. "I'm here to get the information from your boss." There were cameras in the hall where they bought watches. The moment Boggio finished her sentence, the boss of the luxury watch shop walked out. The owner of the famous watch shop walked out. He was a handsome man in a Tang suit, but he had a clip on his head. He looked like a character from a comic book, so people couldn't tell how old he was. "Z, it's rare for you to come personally." The boss sized up the youngster wearing a mask. "Come in, the information is ready. This time, you will definitely feel that it's worth it." Boggio looked cool. After pushing open the door, she felt like she was in a different world. Where did I get the information from?" The boss reached out and scratched his head. Boggio found a seat and sat down. "Your Alzheimer's symptoms are getting more obvious. Are all people with the surname Tang like this? How is that possible?" The handsome boss moved his fingers. "I just remembered. I saved it in the USB. And Z, I told you online not to talk about my age." Boggio arched a brow. "Uncle, other than QQ, you don't know anything else about electronic products, right? Times are changing. During the time you weren't around, I became self-taught," the handsome boss said as he reached out to open the document. The next moment, the video jumped out. It wasn't clear, but it was longer than the video the psychiatrist had received. Boggio's gaze turned colder as she watched until she saw the red tattoo on the mercenary's arm. She suddenly said, "Here, stop for a moment." "Pack." The handsome boss froze the image on the video. He tilted his head and explained, "This is a very old organization. They have been sleeping for a period of time. They probably felt that they didn't earn enough money, so they reached out again." "Why?" "From your expression, do you know them?" Recommended article: 99 Days of Hidden Marriage. Chief, please be reserved. Author: One Lily. She schemed and cheated him of all his firsts. Then, she left all his assets and ran away. Who knew that the next day, she would be brought to the church with a knife? He announced loudly, "Marry or die." Chapter 1130. I don't just know them. Boggio's gaze deepened, turning extremely dark. The handsome man in the Tang suit smiled. "Looks like the hatred level is not low. This organization has appeared before, and this time, it appeared again. Someone recorded this video. Originally, this information was for money, but at this point, the handsome man in the Tang suit paused. If you can let me see what you look like in the military uniform, not only will this information be free, I can also provide you with more insider information." Boggio was helpless. When will the Tang family change their habits? "Z, you are stupid if you don't use all the resources you have. That's what you said to me when you weren't even 15 years old. Even though we haven't met for so many years, I'm curious. What's up with your appearance and hairstyle? The handsome man in the Tang suit pointed at Bo Gio's head. Bo Gio smiled. I can't always look the same. The handsome man didn't dwell on this point and went straight to the point. How about it? Do you want to join the military? Sure. Bo Gio placed one hand on the table and pressed her body down. But uncle, I always thought you were in the underworld. When did you start recruiting for the military? The handsome man took out one of the watches and pretended to study it. You said it yourself. My surname is Tang. What identity do I have to enter? Bo Gio always went straight to the point. The handsome man in the Tang suit put down his watch and curled his thin lips. In 3 days, the Army will select 10 people from the highly qualified special forces to carry out a secret mission abroad. This secret mission is related to this organization. What I can tell you is that it's not as simple as eradicating them. 3 days ago, I received a secret report. It said that all the spies sent by the military had betrayed them. There is a psychological expert in the organization who is good at reading people's minds. At the border, 30% of the students in a school have been hypnotized by him. This time, other than destroying the enemy's communication signal, we have to infiltrate the school and find the expert. If not, we won't be able to rescue them. The school is only 150 kilometers away from the organization's base. That is outside the country, while this is inside the country. This time, the organization's violent actions have violated international law. However, the situation there is tense, and we can't deploy our military power, so that's why we need to hide in secret. Bo Gio interrupted him, her face still as ravishing as ever. I need an identity to enter the military. The handsome man in the Tang suit smirked. Sure, I've already prepared the identity for you. There's just one thing. You have to stand out among the 100 Special Forces soldiers. Remember, you only have 3 days. Everything you do in the Army will be used as a benchmark for your assessment. Bo Gio paused. She lifted her head and asked, Will I get extra points if I'm too handsome? The handsome man in the Tang suit was speechless. Give it to me. Bo Gio looked at the mirror and combed her hair. Being too handsome might cause my marks to drop. I heard that the people in the military are especially tanned and rough. I don't seem to be qualified. The handsome man put his hand on his forehead. Yes. You're the most handsome. Give me a code name first. Code name? Bo Gio glanced over and smiled. They can call me Sugar Daddy. The beautiful shop assistant in the Chong Sam walked over. Is it really okay for you to bully mercenaries like this? Unexpectedly, their boss actually nodded and smiled like a fox. Not bad. The beautiful shop assistant. Boss, UNZ, is it really okay for the two of you to bully people like this? Regardless of whether it was okay or not, the codename had been decided. This was the characteristic she wanted. Bo Gio thought about it. When those people mentioned her codename, they would definitely call her Daddy. She would first give them a show of strength by addressing them. This had always been her style. The next day, far away in the Yunhai region of China, a seemingly ordinary military vehicle drove straight from the center of the grassland. In the back of the military truck, everyone was wearing a camouflage uniform. They were carrying a military bag that weighed 10 kilograms. Every one of them looked very orthodox. There was something strange. The average age of these people wasn't very old. Logically speaking, those who could sit in such a military vehicle and come to such a place must be the top members of the military. But even so, one of them looked really young. His sitting posture wasn't the same as the others. Logically speaking, everyone should be sitting straight, but this person was leaning there lazily with a lollipop in his mouth. He had a high-nose bridge, and when he turned his face, he looked like a high school student who hadn't graduated. The military even accepted people at this age? All right, let's just say that they accepted him. He should be a high-ranking member of the military compound. But they had never seen this person before. These people had either trained in the army with their fathers since they were young, or they were the elites who had been carefully selected from various military regions and troops. However, when they came here, they were immediately nothing. After all, the people who could come here were the cream of the crop. They were all phoenixes among dragons, but this guy had never seen them before. What was going on? But it was rare for him to be so tanned. This fellow's family probably sold coal, right? Brother. One of the young masters with a military aura couldn't help but speak up. Which military unit are you from? Honestly, your tanning is quite unique. I want to be like you and find a chance to bask in it. Unfortunately, I don't have the chance. Shangxi, I guess. The youngster thought for a moment and spat out 2 words. Jiang City. Jiang City? Impossible. The person said directly. I've been around the entire Jiang City. Why haven't I seen you before? Which military compound are you from? The youngster changed his sitting posture. My family is doing business. I don't live in a military compound. That's strange. Prince couldn't understand how such a person had the chance to sit with them. In addition, the other party was too small. At this moment, the military vehicle stopped. This was a desolate little station. Other than the platform full of new recruits, there were no other people. After letting them go, the military truck rumbled away again. The sun slowly set, and the sky was overcast. As the yellow soil flew in the air, only the sound of a military plane could be heard in the distance. The young man lifted his eyes and looked in the direction of the commotion. Even though there was a lazy smile on her face, there was a glint in her eyes. The King of Soldiers troop truly lived up to its name. Such a special method. Is this the first round of testing? Prince, who was standing at the side, was still looking around. He was about to place his arm on the youngster's shoulder to ask for his name. After all, he had looked around. In terms of this car, the 2 of them were the closest in age, so they could definitely get along well. Who would have thought that as soon as he put his arm on it? The young man exerted force and pulled him to the left, then pushed him forward. Before Prince could flare up, a sound came from the sky. It was a gunshot. 2 people slid down from the 2 sides of the military plane, and the gunshot was right beside their feet. F***, what's going on? Prince was in a daze as he chewed on the grass in his mouth. He lifted his head and shouted, "Brother, look carefully, it's one of us. We are here to report." Bang! A second gunshot was heard. It directly hit a person's back. Prince stood up and was about to fight with someone. "Didn't you hear me? It's one of us." The youngster reached out and pulled him back. "You're the one who didn't understand. Look at the back of the person who shot him. Red fog? The gun is a drill too?" Prince was probably like Lin Feng, a naive person. At this moment, he finally understood. Are they here to test us? The youngster didn't have time to talk to him. The gunshot rang out again. There was a limit to where she could hide. Moreover, it wasn't her character to sit still and wait for death. She rolled to the side, dodging the long gun. Then, she kicked the bushes beside her and leaped up. With a swoosh, she heard the sharp sound of her military knife being unsheathed. Then Prince saw something fall from the sky. He lifted his lids to look at the top of the tree. Half of the leaves were gone, but there was one more person. The side of the military knife in the youngster's hand was pressed against the person's neck. This is a strange way to welcome new recruits, but I'm afraid of planes. Why don't we get the people flying above us to come down and have a chat? We will be in the same unit in the future. It isn't good to be so violent. F***CK. The person who was sweeping the plane took off his special goggles when he saw the scene. How did Four Eyes get discovered? Who was the person who threatened Four Eyes with a military knife? Not only did he dodge my fatal blow, but now he actually wants to have a good talk with us. This recruit is too arrogant. Just as he was about to say something, a low voice came from the walkie-talkie. A low voice came from the other side of the walkie-talkie. "How's this batch?" "Boss." The person tugged on the rope beside him, chuckling. "Not bad. They have a bright future." "Is that so?" The voice wasn't cold, but it gave off an oppressive feeling. "Why did I hear that you flew a military plane out to pick them up? You didn't hide yourself and just wanted to show off your power to the new recruits?" The person didn't speak, winking at the people beside him. He wanted to ask which of them leaked the news to their boss. The 3 of them glanced at each other. Were they crazy? Why would they tell their boss about their decision? "We'll talk about your matters when you come back." The magnetic voice rang out again. "Whoever was shot, let them go back. Do it according to the rules." "Yes, boss." At this moment, how could they dare to tell their boss that a new recruit had discovered them and seen through their entire plan? They were digging their own graves. If they didn't bring this batch of new recruits to the unit, their boss would definitely send someone to investigate. Once the investigation started, they would be exposed. Land. After much consideration, that was the only thing they could do. The youngster looked at the plane that was descending lower and lower. His black hair fluttered messily along with the wind brought by the propellers of the plane. But no one knew why, but there was an indescribable sense of handsomeness. Prince muttered, "I must be blind. Isn't he Lord Bao's face? It's the least popular skin color now." Hunter's first impression of the young man was his skin color. It was a little too dark, and he looked very young too. Their plan was actually exposed by a black youngster. Thinking about it, it was really, "I'm the instructor who's here to bring you to the training camp. I'll also be your captain for this period of time," codename Hunter. When he said that, the youngster shifted the military knife in her hand. The young lad shifted the military knife in his hand, and the swift movement of the knife into the scabbard made the hunter squint his eyes. Was this youngster purposely acting cool in front of him? Reality proved that the youngster didn't have that intention. She leaped down from the tree and landed lightly. She was still sucking on a lollipop, but her aura was obvious now. "How did you discover that there's someone here?" Hunter's voice was calm. He had learned this trick from his boss. As a qualified Special Forces soldier, even if he was infuriated, he had to pretend that he didn't care. The youngster glanced up, her voice clear. The youngster looked up and said in a clear voice, "There are two best vantage points here. One of them is barren, and the other tree has more leaves than the other trees. Moreover, the angle of the bullet is different, so the first gunshot didn't come from the military plane. Judging from the position, there should be a sniper hiding here. If I were a sniper, I would also choose this position. After getting out of the car, people's defenses are at their weakest. If a sniper is arranged here, he might be able to take out a whole bunch of people." Prince's jaw dropped when he heard that. When did this youngster discover so many things? Hadn't he been chatting with him all this while? F***CK. Was he the only one who was chatting seriously? Your observation skills aren't bad. Hunter walked towards the youngster. But if you want to stay, your observation skills aren't enough. This is just the beginning, recruit. The young man smiled, the corners of his mouth curling up lazily. Hunter didn't know why he thought of his boss when he saw the youngster smile. What a joke. His boss's smile was the epitome of black-bellied. This youngster was probably just putting on an act. Who would have thought that the moment he had this thought? They brushed past each other. The youngster's voice carried a hint of a smile as he spoke into his ear. "I wanted to show off my strength to the recruits, but I didn't manage to do so. Captain, it seems like we have to be more detailed in our future plans." F***CK. Which troop did he come from? Why was he so difficult to deal with? Sigh. I wonder what the other captains at the training camp would think if they knew about this. The youngster hung the lollipop in his hand and walked forward with a smile. At this moment, Hunter had the urge to call his boss and tell him that there was a recruit who was so powerful that he wanted to beat him up. Chapter 11:31. Hunter watched the youngster's back view and suddenly lifted his rifle. "Since all of you are so capable, this place is 10 kilometers away from the training ground. 9 o'clock. From now on, all of you have to carry heavy weights and carry your backpacks." 10 kilometers? Walking? Carrying heavy weights? What kind of training ground was that? Hunter arched a brow. "It's just 10 kilometers. Those who can't run, don't come. As for the 7 people who were shot, you can wait here. Someone will come and fetch you." With that, Hunter lifted his leg and left. The sniper who had jumped down from the tree was also swift. It was as though the forest ahead was nothing to them. In the blink of an eye, the few figures disappeared into the bushes. A voice could be heard faintly. "After 2 hours, I will wait for you at the finishing point. Those who exceed the time limit will be automatically eliminated. If you are late and can't make it for dinner, you don't have to eat." F***CK. Prince hurriedly carried his backpack. The rest of them did the same. Only those who had been shot rubbed their hair violently. They knew very well that they had been eliminated. There was a car full of people when they came, but now there was only half a car left. Those who stayed knew that they would never be able to join the legendary king of soldiers. Trekking in the forest wasn't like normal walking. No one knew what they would meet there. The recruits hadn't expected that even before the training started, the activity would be more than what they usually did in the army. Of course, stamina was the biggest test. But what Crown Prince didn't expect was that there was someone who didn't take the normal path. While he was still studying the route, the tall and slender figure with the backpack on his back had already leaped onto a tree. He reached out to take off his belt and flew to another tree with a whoosh. F***, where did this guy come from? Why does he look like an ancient person? He even knows martial arts. Prince didn't forget to walk forward as he spoke. As he walked, he realized that it was too slow. Especially when his military shoes were stained with mud, it became heavier. How could he finish this place in 2 hours? They weren't familiar with the terrain, so he wouldn't be eliminated. But what if he couldn't make it for dinner? Brother. Prince thought of a way to stop the youngster from jumping off the tree again. He shouted, I have cigarettes here, do you want them? Come down and rest for a while. The young man chuckled and turned to look at him. I'm rushing for dinner. That's great. We both have the same goal. I see you flying up happily. Do you want to bring me along? Prince added, I don't only have cigarettes here. The young man tilted his head and seemed to think for a moment. All right, but for dinner tonight, if there's any meat, you have to give me half. You're so skinny. Can you eat that much? Prince was speechless. The young man sucked on the lollipop and stood on the tree. Do you still want to fly? Fei. I'll give you half. Prince weighed the pros and cons and decided that time was more important. The young man threw a rope down. Come up. Climb a tree? Prince was stumped. The youth raised his eyebrows. You're from the compound, yet you don't even know how to climb trees? How can I not know? Prince was much better than those cowards. He grabbed the rope and climbed up the tree. He was a little confused. Then, fly. One word. The youngster was already holding onto his belt and flew from one tree to another. F***. What happened to bringing him along? Prince wasn't prepared, and his face almost crashed into the tree. Fortunately, he got used to it. However, he was still cursing in his heart. Where did this black kid come from? He was so skillful at climbing trees. An hour later, the most secretive troops were stationed at the border of the country. There was no one within 500 miles, and the vegetables had to be transported by military aircraft. Here, be it the surrounding environment or the campsite, it was the most suitable for forest combat training. Many people thought that it was natural that there was no war in China. In reality, they weren't born in a peaceful era. They were born in a peaceful country. There were troops stationed at every corner of the 3,000-meter line of defense. Those forces that were eyeing China didn't barge in because of the presence of these troops. This was especially true for this place, which made all the major mercenary organizations fear it. The sun shone brightly and slowly through the forest, dyeing the shadows of the trees with a layer of rough edges. A military vehicle was parked in front of the military camp, and a man was standing beside it. The man stood in the light, and the outline of his face, from his forehead to his chin, seemed to be shining with a furry light. The edges and corners were so distinct that they looked like they had been carved. He tilted his head and lit a cigarette. His fingers were especially fair. If it wasn't for his military uniform, no one would be able to tell that he was a soldier. When Hunter arrived at the campsite, he had a gloating smile on his face. However, when he saw the figure in front of him, his mouth froze. He stood up straight and did not dare to look at anyone. He looked straight ahead and called out, "Boss." The figure glanced at him and pointed at the military vehicle. His voice was calm. "We're the people I asked you to bring along. I feel that since it's their first time here, we should let them familiarize themselves with the surroundings so that they can enter the training state better." Hunter reported loudly. However, his heart was pounding. "That's a good idea." The figure smiled. When his thin lips curled up, his smile lingered on his face, making it hard to see his face clearly. Hunter's eyes lit up. He hadn't expected his boss to agree to his idea until he heard the next sentence. "Since you have such an idea, it's fine to just eat vegetables for dinner. It shouldn't be a problem for them to run another 5 kilometers. As the figure spoke, he raised his hand to look at the time on his watch. In 1 hour, report to me. What else could Hunter say? The 3 comrades standing at the side were all smiling. They were afraid that if they laughed out loud, they would end up in the same state. After the figure left, one of them placed his arm on Hunter's shoulder. One of them put his arm on the Hunter's shoulder and said, "You've gone too far this time. All right, logically speaking, you all drove the military plane there. There shouldn't be many people left. Why did you let them walk? I'm helping boss pick talents in advance." Hunter waved his hand. "What do you know, magician?" Magician put on his military cap. "All right, continue picking. I'm going in for dinner. I heard that there's a pot of beef today. It's a pity that someone won't be able to eat it." Hunter felt bitter, but he didn't say anything. There were 2 batches of people in front of them. Why was it so easy for Magician and the others to receive them? Yet there was a thorn in his side. The moment Hunter thought of the black fellow, he scanned the surroundings instinctively. He definitely couldn't let anyone else know about the counterattack, especially Magician and the others. It was too embarrassing. They won't be able to leave without walking for at least 2 hours. The sniper placed his hand on Hunter's shoulder. That's a good show of strength. I'm impressed. Hunter leaned against the military vehicle. We have to let them know what this place is, especially those who got in through connections. If they don't have the ability, they should leave. I heard that Captain got in through connections too. The sniper lowered his voice. Hunter frowned. F***, boss needs connections? Don't spread such rumors in the future. I'm just asking. The sniper glanced at his watch. An hour has passed. Shall we head out to take a look? The person beside him laughed. Do we need a look? We definitely won't be able to make it. We should take a shower now and wait for dinner. Isn't that right, Hunter? That's right. Unexpectedly, the moment he finished speaking, a lazy voice rang from behind. A lazy voice came from behind. Looks like we've arrived. The cars here aren't bad. The few of them turned around abruptly. He saw a dark-skinned young man carrying a military bag on his back. His camouflage pants were tucked into his military boots. After walking for 10 kilometers with a heavy load, the young man's face didn't seem to show any signs of fatigue. He was still clean and looked like a ruffian. He didn't look like someone who had come from the jungle. The person beside the youngster was clean too. However, his face seemed to have been scratched by a tree branch. He looked a little pitiful, but no matter what, the 2 of them shouldn't have appeared so quickly. They had familiarized themselves with the terrain for a week before arriving at the training ground within an hour. The 2 of them were here for the first time, but they were on par with them in terms of time. Hunter's emotions were complicated. He had wanted to show off his strength to the new recruits twice, but he failed both times. "Where are we eating?" The second voice rang. It was still the youngster. Hunter inhaled deeply. His throat moved up and down. In the end, he could only say, "Report first. Both of you follow me." The youngster arched a brow. "I thought we would be able to eat once we arrived. Turns out we still have to wait." Hunter felt that one breath wasn't enough for him. Where did this youngster come from? Everyone who can enter the elite troop is 1 in 1,000. There's something I have to remind you. Don't come here. Whether you can stay or not will depend on your performance. The troop is here to feed you. When a young man heard this, he gave a lazy, "Oh." Prince, whose face was scratched, gave him a thumbs up. The youngster was amazing. He asked for food the moment he arrived. He was different. At the reporting ground, everyone has a blanket. Remember, there's only one blanket. Take care of your hygiene. Toothpaste, toothbrush, wash basin, towel, and rice bowl. Remember your own things, and don't take the wrong bowl when you eat. Hunter pointed to a spot not far away. That's where you'll be staying. There will be 4 people to a room, and there won't be a private bathroom. If you want to shower, go to the bathhouse on the west side. Saving water is a part of the troop's records. Training doesn't care about time, so it's best to be prepared. Prince didn't think much of it. The basic facilities of every troop wouldn't be too bad. The only difference between the special forces and normal troops was the daily training. It was said that there were 2 batches of new recruits before them. There were probably 3 batches of new recruits going through the selection process. Prince caressed his chin. He felt a little helpless. They seemed to have unintentionally offended their captain. What should they do? But Prince tilted his head. He looked at the dark-skinned youngster who had been studying the bathhouse. He didn't seem bothered at all. No, what was there to study about a bathhouse? Almighty, you have to think about the current situation. Prince felt that at this moment, as a comrade who had worked together with him, he had to remind him. He hugged the military blanket he had just received and lowered his voice. Brother, tell me the truth. Do you have a strong background? What backing? The youngster tilted his head, asking nonchalantly. Prince lowered his voice. Don't hide it from me. How would you dare to offend Captain if you don't have a strong backing? You wouldn't have been able to enter this batch of soldiers if you didn't. The youngster continued to observe the surroundings, looking distracted. Other than a strong backing, isn't there a selection process? I fought my way in. Prince, he didn't know if he should call him a master or wake him up. If he didn't have a strong backing, why didn't he keep a low profile? You must be lying to me. Prince didn't believe him. The youngster continued to walk forward. As someone who was good at imagining things, it was better to let him guess quietly. Prince really couldn't understand his new roommate. That's right, they were roommates. They had arrived at the same time. According to the order they had reported, they would definitely stay in the same room. The youngster tossed his backpack onto the lower berth the moment he entered. He observed for a moment before tossing his backpack next to him. Hunter didn't leave, mainly because he wanted to see which mountain the youngster was from. Yet, the moment he tossed his backpack onto the bed and laid the blanket, the first thing he said was, "Can we eat now?" Hunter, Prince. He was afraid that the air would suddenly turn silent. Seriously, Hunter, you brat. Other than eating, don't you think about anything else? You can eat now. Bring your things to the canteen. Hunter threw this sentence and walked out first. He really wanted to tell his boss that there was a youngster in their team who deserved to be beaten up. Unfortunately, if he said it, he would definitely reveal the fact that he had been humiliated. Hence, he couldn't say it. He definitely couldn't say it. On the way to the canteen from the dormitory, no one knew the reason. The youngster suddenly stopped in her tracks. A pair of extremely dark eyes landed on a car not far away. Logically speaking, that car shouldn't be here. After all, they were in the military and everything should be military vehicles. But that car was a limited edition sports car. The gold-plated black color, coupled with the smooth lines of the car body and the door that resembled a wing, it was easy to tell which model it was at first glance. Chapter 1132. Do you like this car too? Prince leaned over. You have good taste. There aren't many cars like this in the country. I wonder whose car it belongs to. It actually drove here. The youngster didn't say a word, reaching out to touch his nose bridge before glancing at the Lamborghini. Hunter turned, crossing his arms and arching a brow. This car belongs to Captain. You better stay far away, otherwise you'll be the unlucky ones. Captain? The youngster's gaze deepened at this moment. Hunter didn't even turn his head. You'll see him after the next 3 days. Prince wasn't interested. Someone who could drive a sports car into the army definitely had a powerful background. As compared to Captain, he was more interested in Little Black Boy. However, what he didn't expect was that the other party really didn't care about their first meeting at all. He really took away all the beef he brought and even said one word: remuneration. Prince bit into the huge bun in his hand, eating a few mouthfuls of cabbage. He comforted himself that it was better to have food than nothing. As compared to the youngster and the rest, the earliest to arrive was half an hour later. Of course, there were still 2 hours before they arrived. Hunter didn't beat around the bush. Those who are late, go back the way you came. Those who arrive within 2 hours, follow me. Those who stayed weren't happy, but those who left weren't disappointed either. After all, they hadn't even started training, and it was already like this. What kind of mission were they going to carry out for the selection process to be so strict? No one knew the specifics, but many people had already predicted that this would be a mission of no return. Those who came late really didn't have anything to eat. At first, they thought that everyone was the same. When they saw the youngster walk out of the canteen, rubbing her tummy, the others were dumbfounded. Didn't they leave at the same time? How did these two people get here so early? Now, Crown Prince finally understood how others looked at him in awe. He had to admit that it felt good. But why did he feel that he was using his connections to intimidate others? But before he could finish using his connections to intimidate others, the people around him seemed to want to leave. Huh? Where are you going? Even though he was using his connections to intimidate others, it was better than not being startled. The youngster stuffed a hand into her pocket. Just strolling around. We'll gather later. Prince frowned. You're still wandering around. The young man didn't turn around and disappeared in a few steps. The crown prince wanted to call for help, but he couldn't. Fortunately, the team leader who picked them up was still eating in the cafeteria. If he saw this scene, he would have caught the black kid and taught him a lesson. But where did that person go? How mysterious. Where did the youth go? Just look at the Lamborghini parked in the shadow of the tree. The car had been parked here for less than 3 days, but no one had ever dared to approach it. After all, when it came in, everyone in the unit knew that it was a talking sports car. If anyone approached it and touched the door, the car would automatically start and sound an alarm. In less than a minute, the boss would be standing in front of them. When that time came, trying it once was enough. The young man stood there, raised his eyebrows, and stretched out his left hand. When it sensed that someone was approaching it, the navigation system automatically activated and was about to make a sound. She said, I like you. Chin Mo, voice password correct, beginning voice recognition. The navigation system vibrated. Once it had the ability to calculate, the car shook. Master? Could it be that it was poisoned? Why would it hear its master's voice here? Little Blackie turned on the headlights and started to check the system. It was afraid that it would be poisoned. But when the youngster said the second sentence lazily, Little Blackie was 100% sure that this was its master. Not bad. You're clean. Seems like I don't have to bathe you anymore. That's right. This youngster was Bo Gio in disguise. When the navigation system vibrated, it wasn't any slower than a human's voice. Master, why are you here? Are you here to pick me up? Although your little vixen treats me very well, there's not a day that I don't miss you. I thought that man would leave me in America. Who would have thought that he would actually transport me here? I've checked the information. This place is too far from America. I can't go back myself. Master, there's something I must tell you. Your little vixen isn't a little vixen at all. He's a black-hearted demon king. You don't know. Just as Little Blackie was about to say something, Bo Gio interrupted him. Bo Gio suddenly interrupted him. Someone's here. Little Blackie stopped speaking immediately, the navigation system turning into a straight line. The headlights weren't flickering either. It seemed as though the car hadn't been started at all. It wasn't anyone else. It was Hunter, the person who had brought Bo Gio and the others into the military. He scanned Bo Gio from head to toe before glancing at the Lamborghini that was parked there. He frowned. I knew you wouldn't stay put. I don't care which unit you were in the past, but it's different here. It's best to listen to your superiors. Otherwise, regardless of where you came from or what background you have, you will be kicked out. Little Blackie wanted to move when he heard that. Bo Gio bent down and tied her shoelaces, replying, All right. That foot was pressed against its tire. Little Black immediately understood what he meant and continued to stand still like a pine. It seems like there's a need for a meeting, Hunter said, gesturing for Bo Gio to leave. Bo Gio didn't say much, smiling as she brushed past him. Hunter thought Little Blackie was going to say something to him, his expression guarded. He hadn't expected Little Blackie to just glance at him. F***CK. Hunter didn't think he had any status as the captain. Yet, Little Blackie hadn't violated his principles. He was furious. Hunter felt like he was going crazy. But even so, as a Special Forces soldier, he still noticed one thing. The Lamborghini was exceedingly quiet today. Did Little Blackie just look at it and didn't even touch it? Hunter muttered as he thought about it. The navigation system vibrated a few times. Even though there wasn't any sound, the ripples were telling him that the Little Blackie was his true master. He didn't even care about touching me. He could even drive me away. Now that he thought about it, Master must have infiltrated the military camp because of it. Master had never forgotten about it. He was touched. Whenever the Lamborghini was happy, it couldn't help but turn on its headlights. Just as it was turning on its headlights for the second time, a slender figure walked over from afar. just as Hunter was still in disbelief at the back of the car. The figure's hand was already in front of the car. His face was clearly visible. He was dressed in a military uniform, looking elegant and elegant. His side profile carried a faint coldness. Who else could it be other than Chin Mo? Your 10-kilometer weight-bearing run came all the way here? Hunter's back stiffened when he heard this. He turned over and saluted. Boss, you touched little Blackie? Chin Mo glanced at the headlights, his peach blossom eyes narrowing. Hunter shook his head immediately. No, boss. Everyone knows little Blackie is your concubine. No one dares to touch her. Don't spout nonsense. Chin Mo was still holding onto a cigarette. It's useless even if you change the topic. From now on, the 20-kilometer weight-bearing run will start. Hunter was completely dispirited. Boss, I really didn't touch little Blackie. Before I came, there was another little Blackie. That's right, it must be that little Blackie. That little Blackie. Chin Mo's voice was calm. Which one? Hunter was about to speak when he remembered how he had been slapped in the face previously. He instantly kept his voice down. It's just a recruit. There are so many recruits today. Chin Mo glanced over. Little Blackie. The navigation system moved. MH? Hunter? Such an evil MMH. What did it mean? More importantly, boss didn't notice anything. Chin Mo arched a brow. Who touched you? This time, the smart navigation system's response was very quick and direct. Hunter was dumbfounded. When did he touch little Blackie? Who would believe that a car could lie? Little Blackie, you can't do that as a car. Hunter still wanted to say something. The Lamborghini switched off the headlights and navigation system, looking as though it didn't want to listen to his excuses. Hunter turned his head. Chin Mo's expression remained the same. 20 kilometers. No, why didn't anyone believe him? Who else could tell him why little Black, who had always been honest and straightforward, had suddenly learned to lie? Hunter really couldn't understand. After all, he didn't know that the intelligence system would adjust according to the original owner's needs. Since Master had purposely not revealed his identity, as a qualified intelligent sports car, it would definitely keep the secret from Master. Sigh. He didn't even understand such a simple logic. However, he didn't know when Master would drive it away. The defensive facilities here were top-notch. In terms of escape, it wasn't suitable, especially when the devil was watching over it. The next time it saw Master, it had to expose the devil's true identity. That would help it escape. The intelligence system had already formed an answer after its analysis. On the other side, Chin Mo held onto the car with one hand and lowered his waist. His voice was calm. Tell me, who was the person who touched you just now? If little Blackie had a heart, it would definitely be trembling at this moment. Fortunately, it was an intelligent system. It replied steadily, it was him. Chin Mo looked at the Lamborghini under his hand, his gaze distant. It seemed as though he wasn't looking at the car in front of him. Instead, he was looking at someone through the car. This was the only thing that fellow had left him. A car. Other than this car, that fellow seemed to have disappeared. Chin Mo tightened his grip before releasing it. That tall and slender figure seemed to give off an indescribable sense of loneliness. It seemed as though he had felt it before. He had assumed that he would be able to see that person the next day. But when he pushed the door open, it was already empty. There was nothing there. It seemed as though it had been thrown away. Chin Mo lifted the corners of his lips. He was smiling, but there wasn't a hint of a smile. On the contrary, even when he walked, his back was very empty. At the same time, in the military dormitory, Prince stood up when the youngster returned, a mysterious expression on his face. I finally know what mission we're going to carry out this time. Bogio felt that it would be too hurtful if she didn't show a hint of curiosity at this moment. She asked casually, what mission? Do you see the brother on the upper bunk? He's from the Eagle Air Force. They're the best Air Force in China. They're pure special forces. Usually, when they're needed, they'll definitely be sent to carry out overseas missions, Crown Prince said excitedly. Bogio tilted her head, signaling for him to continue. Prince lowered his voice. According to my analysis, our mission this time is related to the tourist corpses that were found in the Golden Triangle a few days ago. Someone said that the tourists were killed because a mercenary group that was trying to show off to our country. Which means the mission will be carried out in the Golden Triangle. All of a sudden, a deep voice rang out. Prince turned over. It was the Special Forces soldier from the Eagle Air Force unit that he had been discussing. Cough, was my voice that loud? That person glanced at him. Very loud. All right, brother. From today onwards, we will be on the same side. Don't bother about these details. Prince reached out and placed his hand on that person's shoulder. Let me introduce myself. I'm the chief, codename Prince. We're my brothers. Eagle Wolf. The purebred Special Forces soldier seemed to be a man of few words. After they finished speaking, they couldn't help but look towards the tanned youngster who was lying on the bed with his long legs crossed. Bojio initially ignored their gazes. After all, her codename was too invincible. Unfortunately, her partner was too persistent. Codename. Prince reached out and knocked on the youngster's head. This time, he would have a chance to know where this youngster came from. The purebred Special Forces soldier wanted to know his identity too. After all, there weren't many people who could reach the unit in less time than him. Besides, he had seen all the youngster's actions before this. Which unit did he come from with such sharp observation skills? Bojio didn't disappoint. She finally spoke, her voice still a little lazy. Army, codename Sugar Daddy. Prince, Wolf, Sugar. Sugar Daddy? Prince repeated the two words with much difficulty. He had thought that the codename Prince was impressive enough. After hearing the other party's codename, all right, brother, I'm impressed. You're amazing. Bojio didn't feel ashamed. Instead, she felt proud. I know that. Wolf shook his head, trying to wake himself up. After all, this was the codename he had chosen. He had to reevaluate what kind of person he was. It was a pity that this codename hadn't been officially entered into the unit system. Bojio was actually feeling a little guilty. With such a codename, the Almighty would probably be able to recognize her immediately. He flipped over, and the corners of his mouth curled up. MH, she could see the Almighty again. Chapter 1133. But before that, she had to solve the problem of bathing. Just as he was thinking about this, Prince unbuckled his belt and removed his camouflage combat uniform jacket, leaving only his undershirt. He had a white towel draped over his shoulder and a basin in his hand. Sugar Daddy. Prince was stuck at this point, unable to say the last word. He changed the topic. Let's go take a hot shower. Bojio didn't even turn. She replied lazily, I'm not going. You've been in the jungle for more than an hour. Aren't you going to bathe? Prince widened his eyes. In the past, he had been like this in his dormitory, not washing his socks for 3 consecutive days. But he hadn't expected the expert to be like this. That explained why it was so dark. How could it not be dark if she didn't bathe? Prince shook his head and left helplessly. Wolf didn't seem interested in his surroundings at all. Bojio used the basin to fill it with hot water. She removed her military boots and sat on the lower bunk to soak her feet. While she was soaking her feet, she was thinking about how she could meet the Almighty without being discovered. It was the first day of the new recruits report. Logically speaking, they were supposed to be resting at night. But that was a normal troop. Here, it was obviously different. It was 1 o'clock in the morning when everyone was asleep. Suddenly, a whistle sounded. Wolf was the first to open his eyes. From his point of view, he should be the first one to clean up the mess. He hadn't expected there to be another person. He straightened his back, his camouflage uniform hanging on his body. The lights turned on. Hunter stood in front of the door, taking pictures of each dormitory. Gathered downstairs in 30 seconds. Those who were slow, you know the consequences. His words seemed to be more powerful than the gathering post. Everyone was wearing their clothes as fast as they could. Wolf watched as the youngster turned. With a flip of his hand, the military cap was placed on his head. In reality, those who were able to stay weren't slow. Even Prince was extremely fast when he packed his things. But no matter how fast they weren't as fast as the youngster. The youngster seemed to have practiced dressing for years. In the blink of an eye, the youngster had already lowered her head to tie her shoelaces. But there was something else. The military blanket didn't seem to be folded. The 3 batches of recruits were led by 3 people. According to their estimations, this group of people was selected from the various brigades. At the very least, they should have a sense of time. However, 30 seconds was too much of a requirement for speed. Only half of the people could reach this speed. The young man was the first to come down. To be honest, Hunter actually felt that it wasn't bad for this black kid to be in his team. At the very least, he could make himself look good. Just like that, another half of the candidates were eliminated. However, at this time, an unexpected problem appeared. Whose bunk next to the door is 318? 318? Isn't he from our team? Hunter frowned. The young man in a military uniform who was the first to come down stepped forward. Sir, it's mine. The inspector looked at the teenager up and down. Why didn't you fold the blanket? The blanket wasn't folded? How can anyone make such a low-level mistake? I don't know how to fold. The young man's reply silenced the surroundings. He didn't even know how to fold his blanket. How did this guy get here? Other than the soldiers led by Hunter, the other teams all turned to look at Bogio. They looked as though they were looking at an idiot who used his power to force his way in. The inspector closed the book in his hands. He started to suspect that there was a problem with their selection system. He narrowed his eyes and looked at all the information the youngster had received since the selection. He was the best fighter in the army. Not only that, his marksmanship was number 1 too. Most importantly, it was written that he was an expert in cyber attacks. Such a person had actually passed the selection as a technical soldier. But why didn't he know how to fold his blanket? Wasn't that the most basic requirement? The inspector was silent for around 5 seconds. This was the first time he had encountered a problem that even he didn't know how to solve. He called the leader in charge, Hunter, to the side. How is his performance? His observation skills are top-notch. He should be an expert in jungle warfare. Also, Hunter's voice was low. Very special. The inspector tapped the book with his fingers. How should I report to boss? Honestly, we don't know where this youngster came from. Look at today's selection. If he doesn't meet the standards, we'll send him away. If he performs well, we'll report him to boss. After listening to Hunter's words, the inspector nodded. That's the only way. Tell us about today's mission. The inspector turned, his gaze sweeping across the soldiers in front of him. His gaze paused on the youngster, hinting for him to put this matter aside. But they had just arrived, and they already had mission. Everyone was taken aback by this unexpected order. After all, they could accept training so early. They had expected that joining such a team would definitely be different from the original one. But they had a mission the moment they arrived. Was this normal? Each of you will be given a pistol and a map. This time, your mission isn't to deal with criminals, it's a military exercise. There's a garrison 100 kilometers away from our training camp. You have to destroy it before sunset. Destroy mission? Someone couldn't help but voice out. The inspector glanced at him. That's right, it's a destroy mission. Before this, we have already leaked the information to them. This means that they are more alert than usual. Then why would they destroy it? How many of them were there? It was an entire military unit. Prince was used to being in the military. The moment he heard this, he realized the difference between him and Huajin Yao. Now, check the watch. The hunter raised his hand and said in a dignified tone, I'll be in charge. Once you're killed, the red will disappear. Similarly, I'll use the walkie-talkie to confirm your location. If you don't complete the mission before nightfall, it'll be considered a failure. Everyone get in the car. Yes. A loud and clear voice rang out. Everyone's speed was extremely fast, as expected of the best soldiers chosen from all over the country. After they boarded the car, they couldn't help but glance in the direction of the youngster. It was simple. This was an important military exercise. None of them wished to be held back. Find someone to protect this brother. This was the only solution they could think of. However, they also knew very well that this method could be used during drills, but when it came to real practice, it would be useless. But no matter what, they were comrades, and they represented the elite military unit. It was good to be protected. Bogio sat there in silence. She was studying the map. Most people studied the terrain when they studied the map. Bogio was studying the location of the power supply and the network coverage. Of course, there was the most important thing, the high ground. Under normal circumstances, grasping the high ground was equivalent to grasping the best sniping point. But since the other party was prepared, they would probably be careful in this aspect. But there was one good thing. The other party didn't know when they were going to invade. Bojiu sat in the back of the military vehicle. When she glanced up, a glint flashed across her dark eyes. The military vehicle drove at a high speed. In less than 2 hours, they were nearing their destination. Once you pass through this forest, you will reach the other party's training camp. I have to remind you that this forest is within their defensive perimeter. If you're discovered and shot, you will be eliminated. All right, you can set off now. The moment Hunter finished speaking, the 3 batches of recruits, about 100 of them, dispersed instantly. They started checking their equipment. It was 3:30 a.m., the best time to invade. This meant that the other party was still in a deep sleep. This operation was split into teams. Bojiu was in Team 1. Most of the people in Team 2 and Team 3 rushed towards their destination after entering the forest. This was reflected in Hunter's position. The red dot on the walkie-talkie was also reflected. Team 1 was moving as well. However, there was a difference. There was a dot that didn't move after entering. That dot was none other than Bojiu. Prince only stopped when he saw the youngster come to a stop. Prince naively thought that the youngster had discovered something. He asked anxiously, "Is there a sniper in the surroundings?" "No." Bojiu observed the humidity around her. Prince was confused. "If it isn't, why did you stop?" "Sleep." Bojiu spat out the word. Prince wasn't the only one who slipped and almost fell. Even the other 2 people in the dormitory wanted to knock the youngster's head open. They wanted to ask him what he was thinking. Forget it. He can stay here. At least he won't be discovered. The other teams had already decided on the youngster's position in their hearts. Such a person wasn't suitable to be here. He was more suited to be his young master. Hence, he didn't even turn his head. He walked deeper into the forest. Prince wanted to follow, but for some reason, he didn't know why. He didn't think this youngster was just going to sleep. After all, he had seen how this youngster had traversed the forest with his own eyes. Prince made a choice between the person walking in front and the youngster who was really looking for a place to sleep. He gritted his teeth and didn't walk forward. Instead, he retreated and asked, "Are you planning something?" "No." "If you didn't, you would dare to sleep during such an important military exercise. How dare you say you don't have a backer? Even I wouldn't dare to do that, brother." Prince resisted the urge to roast her. He lifted his feet and was about to leave when a lazy voice came from behind. A lazy voice came from behind him again. "I can tell you what I think, but only if there's a reward." Prince turned, his gaze unfriendly. "You aren't suited to be a soldier. You're suited to rob. You flatter me." Bojiu found a tree and leaned against it. She sat casually, but because of her military uniform, she looked indescribably handsome. Prince gritted his teeth. "I'm not praising you. The payment is simple." Bojiu ignored his emotions. "Help me fold my blanket for 3 days." At the mention of this, Prince broke down. "Are you really from the army? You don't even know how to fold your blanket. Do you know how embarrassing you were just now?" Bojiu unwrapped a candy and placed it in her mouth. She shrugged. "I'm not good at this, but I can't help it. Go and ask any soldier who doesn't know how to fold their blanket." Prince was losing his patience. Bojiu changed the topic while he was still rational. "If we go in now, we will be discovered easily. Why don't we take a nap and recover our energy?" "That's not right. This is the time when humans are the most tired. If we take action now, we will have the advantage. How can we be discovered easily?" Prince wasn't just for show. He knew the benefits of taking action now. Bojiu was still lazy. That's if they aren't aware of our actions. If you can think of it, how can they not think of it? The commanding officer should be their regiment commander. A regiment commander doesn't even have such analytical skills. Do you think it's possible? It was like thunder. That was the only thought left in Prince's mind when he heard this. Yes, they were strong. They weren't weak either. They were all from the army. How could they not be aware of this? Prince stilled. He sat beside the youngster and raised his hand, giving her a thumbs up. He asked, "Why didn't you tell everyone just now? It would reduce the number of casualties." Bojiu arched a brow. Do you think they would believe someone who doesn't even know how to fold his blanket? Prince, he really didn't know how to believe. This was to make it easier for them to confirm each other's position. Everyone will have a recorder with a red dot on it. When the other comrades saw that the red hadn't moved from beginning to end, they were shocked. They didn't expect anything else. In their hearts, completing the mission was the most important thing. According to the rules of the military drill, they had to destroy all of them before the blue team, which was this team, won. They belonged to the red team. They had to destroy the enemy's camp to win. Since that was the case, time was of the essence. What they didn't expect was that just as they took the first step, something happened. Hunter wasn't able to see the entire process clearly. He only knew that the red dots on the screen were disappearing one after another. The speed was frightening. His expression changed. He immediately picked up the walkie-talkie. What's the situation? Even though this was a military drill, he was the one commanding the troops. Why did so many of them disappear the moment they started? Reporting, we've been ambushed by a sniper. Hearing this, the hunter placed his hand on his forehead. This old fox, why was he so smart when it came to him to command the battle? Previously, when their captain led the troops to destroy the camp, he didn't seem to know how to ambush them. A certain regiment commander was drinking tea in his office. How is it? Reporting, everything is going smoothly. A certain regiment commander snorted. Chinamo, that coal brat. He only has a few tricks up his sleeves. This time, he has to get back the face he lost. Yes. The reporting soldier straightened his back and said, but regiment commander, the one commanding the troops isn't boss, it's his soldiers. A certain regiment commander's face turned red. If the soldiers lose, they lose. The reporting soldier. All right, you're the regiment commander. Whatever you say is right. Let me teach his soldiers a lesson as well. Don't think that they can beat us a second time just because they beat us once. Spread the word that these little rascals like to act at night. What they care about is being stealthy. Everyone, be on your guard. Let them know that we are not to be trifled with. Yes. With a loud thud, the heels collided again. Needless to say, the regiment commander's actions were obviously effective. 80% of the 100 people sent out by the red team were gone. There were only 21 people left in the group. Hunter was really anxious. It was obvious that everyone was enjoying the battle at the same time. Magician sent a greeting immediately. I heard that you kicked a metal plate this time. Shut up. Hunter held his forehead. Why was everyone in their team so inhumane? Magician laughed. What are you worried about? Wolf is still around. All right, I have a piece of bad news for you. I just sent the red dot to boss. He should be able to see it tomorrow. Your battle results aren't good, my dear Hunter. Pa. Hunter hung up the phone and looked at the red dot on the screen. Another one was gone. Fortunately, it was 6 a.m. The opponent's investigation had reached a bottleneck. But even so, he didn't have any advantage. There were only 16 people left in the entire team. Everyone's position wasn't the same. It was difficult to give orders. Wait a minute. Why was there still a red dot here? Hunter's gaze shifted downwards, zooming in on the red dot. If he didn't remember wrongly, it was that youngster. Besides the fact that Hunter noticed it, the other teammates who were also looking at the red dot notifications also noticed this. They hadn't expected that the youngster who didn't know how to fold his blanket hadn't been shot. Fate really made a fool out of them. But at this moment, the red moved. It was indeed moving, and it was moving at a very fast speed. There's a world of difference between this and when the red dot had remained motionless in the same position before. What's wrong with the youngster? I don't know either. Even Hunter didn't understand what the youngster was doing, much less his comrades. The only one who understood was Prince. He saw the mystical technique of traversing the forest once again. It was weird too. Why was anyone stopping them? The young man gave him a perfect answer when he was changing his equipment. Our comrades in front have already helped us clear the mines. Now, the enemy's instructor must be catching those who weren't sniped. They won't care about us. Moreover, who would be hiding in the forest at this time? Prince. Why did he realize that he was following a fox? They might have a chance of winning this time. Chapter 1134. But on the other side, Wolf felt that it was too difficult. Compared to the last time, it was as if they were completely annihilated this time, especially since the red dots on his phone were decreasing. This meant that his comrades were decreasing. Wolf Fong leaned to the side, hiding very well. This wasn't strange, since he was a member of the team. Moreover, he was Qin Mo's best sniper. But even so, without their captain's command, Wolf could only protect himself. He couldn't do anything. Regiment Commander, we have captured the enemy captives. The informant came in and reported a number. The regiment commander tapped his fingers on the table. How many are left? 7. The informant replied. The informant continued. 2 of them have been located by our army, but the remaining 5 are particularly difficult to find. The strangest thing is that there are 2 of them that we haven't even discovered. We haven't intercepted them in the jungle. The regiment commander wasn't bothered. They can only protect themselves now. Our army will discover them the moment they make a move. It isn't strange that we didn't manage to capture them. They were just a bunch of new recruits. Since Qin Mo wasn't commanding them, there wasn't any danger. However, at this moment, Bo Jiu sneaked into the camp. Bo Jiu had already infiltrated the base. She used the terrain to form a good cover. She glanced over at Prince. They were all elites from all over the world. With one look, Prince understood what Bo Jiu meant. On the other side of the haystack, 2 soldiers were chatting. Be alert. I heard there are 7 of them. What's wrong? Didn't regiment commanders say that they like to move in the dark? It's daytime now. They wouldn't be so foolish to come. The moment he finished speaking, his vision turned black. He was covered by his backpack. He wanted to shout, but the other party grabbed his throat. His teammate was the same. Bo Jiu had always been fast. Prince watched as the youngster beside him dashed out like an arrow, dragging the person down with him. This was a hidden corner. It was the most convenient place to tie someone up. MH. The 2 soldiers who were tied up tried to make some noise to let others know. Who would have thought that his hands and legs would be tied up? The other party even took off their pants and shirts. Prince still had some conscience. Let's not remove their singlets. Let's leave them with some dignity. Anything. Bo Jiu straightened her military cap and tightened her belt. In just a short minute, she had changed into a new military uniform. Prince watched from the side as the youngster took the keys. He felt a little sad. He wasn't like this in the past. At the very least, they had never stripped the enemy's clothes during military exercises. How could he pull off someone's pants without batting an eyelid? Prince really wanted to give the youngster a thumbs up. At this time, there were only 5 people left in the team. After Hunter saw the 2 dots disappear, he jumped down from the surveillance vehicle and decided to change his strategy. Unexpectedly, the screen suddenly flashed. The kid that he felt was suspicious had actually managed to infiltrate the enemy's base. At the same time, it was in the military headquarters. Magician was still gloating at the red dot on his phone. All of a sudden, a slender and fair hand reached out from behind him and snatched his phone away. Chapter 1135. Qin Mo didn't look at him, his gaze fixed on the phone screen. His nose bridge was high, his side profile accentuated by his military uniform, making him seem noble and untouchable. Magician swallowed his saliva instinctively, afraid that he would be implicated by Hunter. It was really embarrassing for a military exercise to end up like this. But if it was him, he wouldn't have fought either. After all, there were too few of them, and they were all recruits. Moreover, Commander Wu had a deep grudge against them. Definitely, he's waiting for them here. If their team had entered, they would definitely be able to complete the mission. But for the recruits, even if they were the top students of the various troops, they wouldn't be able to break through the grand scheme. Magician thought that his captain's gaze would turn cold, and he would at least sneer. Unexpectedly, who is this? Qin Mo's finger tapped on one of the red dots. The red dot flickered rapidly, completely different from the other hidden soldiers. Magician glanced over. Wolf, he's in there too. It's not him. Qin Mo turned over, his voice calm. He isn't the type. Magician didn't understand. Type? What type? Unorthodox. Chinamo picked up the walkie-talkie beside him, his gaze deepening. Where is he? Hearing the static from the walkie-talkie, Hunter's heart trembled. Captain still found out. Reporting to Captain, he's in the middle of a military exercise. Hunter was crying in his heart when he spoke. Chinamo replied calmly. A military exercise where the entire army was wiped out. Captain, I don't know what happened to that old fox. He actually became more cunning this time. After Hunter finished speaking, he reflected on himself. There's something wrong with my deployment. I'm willing to be punished when they return. Chinamo didn't continue the topic. Instead, he glanced up at the red dot. Number 10, this recruit. Is there something you didn't report? The moment he joined the team last night, he discovered our ambush and even caught our sniper when we weren't paying attention. In just an hour, he leaped over the forest while carrying a heavy load. His observation and explosive power are very strong, but for some reason, he doesn't know how to fold the military blanket. He only knows how to roll into a ball. I was planning to report on him after today's military exercise. So you're saying that you were defeated by a recruit? Magician couldn't help but ask when he heard that. Chinamo glanced back at him. With just one glance, Magician immediately retracted his head. However, this did not stop him from gossiping. He immediately spread Hunter's words in the WeChat group. Hunter didn't need to guess to know the outcome. Should he say that he was careless in making friends, or that Magician's conclusion was too accurate? Boss, why don't we end the military exercise earlier? I'll ask Wolf and the others to return. Hunter wanted to prevent the entire army from being wiped out. Chinmo's finger swiped across the phone screen, replying casually, "There's no need for that. Give me number 10's number." Hunter's eyes lit up. "Captain, you going to command? I'm going to test the recruit's ability." Chinmo tilted his head and pointed. "Position. Yes." Magician immediately locked onto the contact. Hunter wanted to ask more questions. Chinmo turned off the walkie-talkie. At the same time, in the blue team's camp, Bojio was already smoking with the other team. "How's the smoke?" "Not bad. Brother, which team are you from?" "3 in a row," Bojio replied calmly. When Prince heard this, he coughed twice as he smoked. "All right, be more alert later." Bojio continued. "Aren't there 5 people left in the red team?" The 3 soldiers chuckled. "There's only 5 of them. They probably won't dare to come out. Besides, we have a sniper with us. Don't be afraid. They won't dare to come out in broad daylight." "That's true." Bojio flicked the cigarette in her hand, a faint smile on her face. "You're right. They won't dare to come. Prince, do we not exist when we are standing in front of them? Honestly, brother, where did you learn to act so well? But we can't let our guard down." One of the 3 garrison soldiers opened his mouth again. "According to the information we received, there's a person called Wolf in this batch of recruits. His marksmanship is especially good. He's been in the special forces before and has carried out many overseas missions, so we still have to be careful. Don't fail miserably in an easy task." Bojio raised a brow with the cigarette in her mouth. "This isn't the same as the news we received." "What news did you get?" The 3 garrison soldiers immediately became interested. Bojio took the cigarette away, stuffing one hand into her pocket. "There's a recruit in the red team who is good at disguising and hiding. His computer skills are top-notch, and he's young and handsome." While Bojio was speaking, Prince was calculating the people around them, trying to figure out which of them fit the description. The soldier asked, "There's such a person? What's his code name?" "Code name?" Bojio picked up a tree branch beside her and drew 4 words on the ground. The soldiers paused when they saw it. "Sugar. Daddy?" Prince's lips twitched. He needed to reevaluate his comrade's narcissism. He was really thick-skinned. Bojio didn't feel anything at all. Since she was here, she had to announce her code name, right? Right at this moment, a person with a military rank walked over from the right. He pointed at Bojio and the others. "What are you doing? Watch carefully." Bojio lifted her gun without a change in expression. It wasn't a mission, just a way for them to split up. After the person left, Bojio tilted her head. Bojio tilted her head and lowered her voice. The speed of the Lamborghini was much faster than the military truck. Commander Wong regretted making that call. He tilted his head towards his adjutant. Isn't this person shameless? Tell me. The adjutant replied softly. Don't you always know he's like this? Who? Regiment Commander Wong took a deep breath. Go and tell the kitchen to prepare something good. We can't embarrass ourselves. You and I will go and fetch him. Adjutant, you still have to pick him up? Commander, why did you make that call? Around half an hour later, the Lamborghini started to enter the blue team's camp. Wolf swept past the bushes, finding the uniform his comrade had prepared for him. He glanced up towards Prince. Where did you get the uniform? Prince used his chin to point at Bogio. Here, this youngster took it off someone. Wolf glanced at the youngster, not asking further. When should I fire the sniper rifle? In a while, Prince and I will infiltrate the engine room. Bogio adjusted her military cap, covering half of her eyes. I'll leave the periphery to you. Wolf replied, understood. Let's go. Bogio lifted her gun. In that instant, Prince found her handsome. Chapter 11:36. Prince wasn't sure why they were heading to the engine room, but since things had come to this, he could only follow. There was still quite some time before they reached the engine room. Young Master was walking when he turned around and suddenly paused. Hey, Sugar Daddy. F***CK. Look back at your code name. What's that? It's our military car. That Lamborghini. Bogio glanced behind her. His gaze swept over the slender figure sitting in the driver's seat. She felt the surrounding wind turning silent. His heartbeat quickened a little. There was a slight excitement in it. The dopamine concentration in her brain was rising. She didn't look away. Prince watched the black youngster's unmoving gaze. You really like this car. Bogio thought to herself. What do you know? Daddy likes people who drive. F***CK. Who exactly is this person? Why is the Blue Army welcoming him? Prince couldn't understand. Bogio stood there, her heart itching. It was a pity she still had things to do. Otherwise, she would blend into the crowd and take a good look at the Almighty. She decided to ask little Blackie which room the Almighty was staying in when she returned. Bogio lifted her rifle and pulled up the mask covering her face, revealing only her black spectacles. Her long legs were wrapped in a military green camouflage uniform. It was the same for her upper body. With the rifle, she looked like a soldier from the Special Forces station at the border, handsome and tough. The Lamborghini was too fast. It was just a flash. Chinmo's handsome and elegant face left a deep impression on people. Prince turned over, a glint flashing past his eyes. F***CK. There's such a person in the military. He must have been chosen based on his looks. Bogio didn't reply. Her eyes focused on a single spot. Chinmo didn't notice the two soldiers stationed there. After he stopped the car, Commander Wong managed to maintain his image well, a smile on his face. Come, little Mo, I just found an orchid. Give me a reward. Chinmo reached out to push open the car door. He was dressed in a well-ironed military uniform. His waist was tied up, and his belt accentuated his long and slender legs. There was also a tassel on his shoulder, not to mention his elegant and handsome face. In an instant, the surrounding soldiers were a little aggrieved as they looked at their regiment commander. Of all the people they could have invited, why did they have to invite this devil? Chinmo could feel the unwelcome gaze, but the Almighty had the ability to ignore this kind of gaze. With a smile on his face, he took off his white gloves and said, Leader Wong, have you forgotten that I'm here to eat, not to admire the flowers? Across the crowd, Bogio watched him from afar. She took a glance before turning back to take another look. In the end, she shook her head. As expected, beauty is the bane of men. Beauty? Where are they? Prince looked around, but didn't see any female soldiers. Bogio didn't reply. She glanced up at the location of the red dot. She knew that Wolf was already on the move. She turned and took advantage of the time when everyone was welcoming Chinmo to sneak into the blue team's engine room with Prince. It was impossible for the engine room to be unguarded. But Bogio was wearing the military uniform here. As soon as he walked in, he took out a pack of cigarettes. A soldier was still typing inside. The moment he turned, Bogio Gio shot him in the chest. There weren't any bullets in the gun, and it was silenced. When it hit a person, it would only emit red smoke. The soldier who was shot widened his eyes. He was about to shout for help. Gio placed a hand on his body, her voice calm. According to the rules of the military demonstration, you have already sacrificed yourself. If you continue to speak, you will be breaking the rules. The soldier was still sizing up the youngster's uniform. When he understood what was going on, he grabbed his hair fiercely. Gio laughed lightly and stuffed a cigarette into his mouth. She reached out and took the walkie-talkie that he was about to take out. I'll take care of this for you. The soldier, F***. Where did she come from? One of the blue dots on the map suddenly disappeared. Someone would definitely ask. After all, the blue team had a blue dot to observe them. Hello. Number 114, what's going on? Gio picked up the walkie-talkie and turned her head. Nothing, I just removed the sensor. Be careful. All right. After the call ended, the person on the other side was still worried. He said to the two soldiers around him, go to the engine room and see what happened. Yes. After receiving the order, the two of them picked up their guns and walked toward the direction of the engine room. Gio was already seated in front of the computer with the walkie-talkie in her hand. She placed both her hands on the keyboard, typing loudly. Prince glanced over in shock. He could only see the lines of code on the screen, watching the speed of the youth's typing. Was this guy really a technical soldier? A technical soldier who was better at jungle combat than him? Prince felt as though he had suffered a fatal blow. As she typed, she didn't forget to contact Wolf. Begin. All right. As Wolf's words fell, a loud bang was heard. Another blue disappeared from the map. Continue. Gio tapped the enter key and the image on the screen changed instantly. Bang. The blue team's second sniper clutched his chest blankly. He had no idea how he had died. At this moment, the clattering sound filled the entire command center of the blue team. Their commander had gone for lunch, and only the adjutant was left. What's going on? Why did the blue dots on their side disappear? Reporting. The technical soldier's fingers flew across the keyboard. Someone hacked into our network. It's a virus. We're trying to get rid of it. When will it be fixed? I'm not sure yet. You don't know? The adjutant looked at the image and instinctively felt that something was amiss. It's the red team. Inform our commander immediately. I'm afraid it's too late. The technical soldier paused. In 2 minutes, our command center will be theirs. The adjutant turned, his gaze wavering. What did you say? I tried to defend, but I wasn't able to do so. This was the first time the technical soldier had encountered such a situation. Was there something wrong with the information they had received? Was there such a person on the red team? When the adjutant heard this, he was so shocked that he fell back into his chair. Then he said, That's impossible. If we want to seize command, we have to enter the engine room first. Engine room. Contact the snipers lying in ambush. Yes. The technical soldier had wanted to contact them through the walkie-talkie, but all of the walkie-talkies had lost their signal. This wasn't a coincidence. It definitely wasn't a coincidence. The virus created by Z wouldn't be able to snatch the command away. At the very least, they had to cut off their communication. Gio sat in front of the computer, her posture relaxed. She wasn't afraid of the camera above her since her face was covered up tightly. The color drained from the technical soldier's face. His first reaction was to check the surveillance in the engine room. In an instant, on the screen in the command center, there was only a youngster with a black scarf and a rifle by her side. The youngster seemed to know someone was looking at her. She lifted her head and glanced towards the camera. She even extended her hand to greet the technical soldier. Hi, brother from the blue team. The veins on the technical soldier's forehead were about to pop. Who's your brother? At this moment, Commander Wong had the same thoughts. Especially after Chin Mo sat down and started to order. He wasn't treating him as an outsider. Fortunately, he was confident this time. Commander Wong's heart ached for his fish. This Mo brat, he didn't order anything after coming, acting as though he was interested in his fish and wanted to cook it. His tone was as light as a breeze and as calm as the clouds. Commander Wong treasured his fish. It was famous within a few hundred miles. A soldier at the side said, This is our commander's treasure. You should choose something else. Treasure? Qin Mo chuckled. All the more reason to have a taste. Commander Wong took a deep breath. No, this Mo brat was intentionally angering him. He couldn't fall for it. It's just a fish, it's fine. Commander Wong waved his hands. Huh? The soldier was in a daze. Commander Wong replied. What huh? Leave it to the kitchen, cook it. The soldier couldn't believe it, so he got this fish. Regiment Commander Wong changed the water for him every day and treated him like a treasure. Now that he was being treated as a dish, he probably wanted to cry. Commander Wong watched as the kitchen went over to scoop it up, his teeth clenched. His heart was bleeding. But Qin Mo exuded a noble aura, drinking his tea as though everything around him had nothing to do with him, including the fish. Commander Wong regretted making the call once again. But since things had come to this, he might as well brag to the end. At least he would feel better. Young Latimo, there are only 4 or 5 of you left. If you can't do it, just send them back. You aren't the one in command. Why are you still practicing? It's just a waste of time. Commander Wong felt much better after saying that. However, it just so happened that the person who was supposed to give in didn't give in. He even took a sip of his tea elegantly. Wong Tuan, the key is to win by surprise. The number of people is not the key. Commander Wong shook his head with a smile. You don't want to admit defeat. You only have Wolf, and you think you can come and go as you please? The rest of the recruits will probably be eliminated soon. It's just a matter of time. With that, he raised his hand, pointing at the red dot. Look, another one disappeared. But after that, Commander Wong paused. Regiment Commander Wong was stunned. Other than the red dot that had disappeared, there was another red dot in the center of their territory. Chapter 1137. How did this happen? Commander Wong bolted up. He was about to call for help. Just then, the adjutant strode in. Before he could say a word, the beeping alarm resounded throughout the entire military camp. What's going on? Commander Wong raged. The adjutant knew it was too late. Someone infiltrated the engine room. Using some unknown method, the entire electronic command system is in his hands. Where's the technical soldier? Commander Wong couldn't be bothered about Qin Mo's presence. He wanted to know if there was a way to salvage the situation. The adjutant shook his head. There's no way. How did someone infiltrate the engine room? What are the snipers doing? Commander Wong was getting more and more furious. The adjutant was helpless. The other party didn't enter the forest immediately. He probably came after daybreak and disguised himself as one of us. Moreover, the timing of the ambush was impeccable. After infiltrating the engine room, Wolf followed immediately, wiping out most of the snipers. Are you saying that we lost to these two? Regiment Commander Wong wanted to curse out loud. The adjutant felt ashamed. To be precise, there are 3 of them. It's just that the third one seems to have nothing to do. Most importantly, it's that technical soldier. This is a mistake in our investigation. We didn't expect such a person to be hidden among the recruits. The adjutant felt ashamed. More accurately, there were 3 of them, but the third one seemed to be idling around. Most importantly, the technical soldier. This was a mistake in our investigation. We hadn't expected such a person to be hidden among the recruits. Commander Wong paced back and forth in anger. What about the 10 people in the engine room? They couldn't stop him? It seems like they've all been eliminated. When the adjutant said this, his face was a little hot. Commander Wong didn't want to ask anymore. 10 of them couldn't defeat a technical soldier. Speaking of which, how would a technical soldier know about jungle warfare? After Commander Wong calmed down, he was about to ponder over the question when he turned to see a certain someone drinking tea leisurely. He seemed to have understood something. You knew that your soldiers would be like this. Commander Wong felt like he had asked a stupid question. Wait a minute. If that was the case, what about the meal? Commander Wong narrowed his eyes. You purposely agreed to this meal to lower my guard, to lure me away so that your troops can ambush us. Little Mo, when will you be able to have a fair fight with me? Mo's eyes narrowed. Mo's face darkened. Mo sat there, his handsome face tilted slightly. He said slowly, "Regiment Wong, I only agreed to this meal because I took a fancy to your fish. As for lowering your guard, you weren't cautious from the start. After all, the recruits we sent are our regiment's recruits." The adjutant listened at the side. His first action was to hug Regiment Commander Wong's waist. He was afraid that the captain would throw the teapot at young Master Qin. Why was young Master Qin even mentioning the fish at this time? "Don't stop me. This time, I'm going to beat up this icy brat." Commander Wong's voice was extremely loud. The adjutant lowered his voice. "Regiment Commander, you are no longer the company commander. Be careful of your image." The words "pay attention to the influence" still work. Chapter 1138. Commander Wong, you can check if you're interested. Qin Mo stood up, looking handsome in his military uniform. Even though it was a shameless remark, he said it in a polite manner. "It seems like Commander Wong isn't in the mood to have lunch with me. I'll pack the boiled fish and bring it back." "Adjutant, it's fine if you dine and dash, but you want to take it back?" "Young Master Qin, you're really attracting hatred." Commander Wong didn't want to talk to him anymore. The adjutant finally got a taste of what it meant by "it's easier to invite Buddha than to send him away." It wasn't easy for young Master Qin to say that he was going to do it. So be it. He could send him away quickly, so he wouldn't have to fight. The main point was that with his age, he wouldn't be able to defeat young Master Qin. Commander Wong returned to his seat, taking a sip of cold tea. "Is he gone?" "Yes." The adjutant nodded. Commander Wong wanted to retort, but someone entered at this moment. Hence, he had to maintain his imposing image. "Report. Come in." "Commander, we found Wolf's tracks. We're chasing him." Commander Wong sighed. "What's there to chase? Come back." "Come back." The reporter was confused. Commander Wong pointed to the black screen. "The command center is in their hands. It means that the military exercise is over." "Over? When did that happen?" The Blue Army was still in a daze. On the other hand, the Red Army looked at the three figures that jumped out of the jungle. They were speechless. As the first batch of people who had been ambushed, they never expected that they would actually win. And it was because of that person. The recruits from the Red Army glanced over at the youngster who was tying his shoelaces. The young man's disguise was perfect. From head to toe, he was wearing the Blue Army's combat uniform. There wasn't even a single flaw in his disguise. The only distinguishable part was his face. It was indeed the person on their side, who didn't even know how to fold a military blanket. They had been annihilated by a recruit. Commander Wong wasn't happy, but he wanted to poach him over. That was why he had asked Mo. That brat had already turned into a spirit. He was extremely vigilant and didn't say anything. Commander Wong narrowed his eyes, contacting the technical soldier. "Show me the footage from the engine room." He also wanted to see which unit this person came from so that he could find the other party's original unit and snatch the person over. Unexpectedly, there was a video. However, in the video, all that could be seen was that person's clean and efficient movements. With a sideways swing of his gun, he directly eliminated his opponent. It was impossible to tell what he looked like. Because that person's face was covered with a black mask, the only thing that could be seen was a pair of extremely black eyes. It was impossible to tell who this person was. Then, there was the sound of slender finger being lifted. That kind of speed was rare. Similarly, the speed at which this person left was also unprecedentedly fast. He didn't look like a recruit at all. Instead, it seemed like something that Kid Mo's team would do. They came and went without a trace, leaving no trace behind. It was only now that Regiment Commander Wong realized that he had underestimated his opponent in this military exercise. This was a premeditated invasion. Compared to overseas missions, it was nothing. However, who was this recruit? What was his identity? Where did he come from? How could a military exercise be so mysterious? What kind of mission was this group of people going on? Thinking about this, Regiment Commander Wong understood that youngster Qin Mo was using them as practice. He was using this military exercise to pick out recruits. Regiment Commander Wong was right. That was the reality. 3 batches of recruits. From over 100 people, there were only around 20 people left. Bojio was the one who was picked out again. Her execution ability was strong, but her ability to take care of herself was terrible. How did such a person become a soldier? The inspector paused once more. After some thought, he decided it was time to report to his captain. At this moment, while everyone was eating in the canteen, Bojio walked towards a Lamborghini that was parked under the shade of the tree. When little Blackie started up, the entire car was filled with excitement. It knew that its master would definitely come looking for it. It was just a matter of time. After the voice unlocked the car, the navigation system sent out a message. "Master, are you ready? I have enough fuel. You can drive me out now." "Who said I was going to drive you?" Bojio scanned the surroundings. "Which room is the Almighty staying in?" "Little Blackie." "No, Master, what exactly are you here for? Aren't you here to look for me?" The navigation system vibrated twice. 9 o'clock, 3rd floor. 9 o'clock, 3rd floor? Bojio glanced up. It wasn't easy to navigate. Coincidentally, she saw a soldier carrying a bowl of food into the room. "Hey, what's that in your hand?" The soldier turned and smiled. "Captain, it's a bag of boiled fish from the Blue Army. The kitchen heated it up, and I'm bringing it in." "I have something to look for, Captain." "I'll bring it in," Bojio replied naturally. The soldier didn't suspect anything. He was in a hurry to return to the canteen, since it wasn't early anymore. Bojio took the food and prepared to meet the Almighty. Little Blackie listened at the side. Humans were really heartless. It had thought that its master couldn't bear to leave him, but it turned out that she couldn't bear to leave the devil. Bojio really wanted to meet the Almighty. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken such a risk. The Almighty probably wouldn't be able to recognize her. After all, her appearance, clothing, and skin color had changed greatly. It shouldn't be a problem. However, just in case, it was better for her to stay low when she went in later. Bojio was ready. She raised her hand and knocked on the door. She heard a voice coming from the other side of the door. "Come in." Bojio pushed the door open and walked in. The first thing she saw was the military pants on the wooden chair. There was also a leather belt hanging over it. There were also the military boots on the floor. Through the hazy glass door, she could hear the sound of the shower. She could vaguely see his tall and slender back. The lines were smooth, strong, and perfect, but it wasn't especially sincere. The Almighty was showering? Her heartbeat was clearly different. Through the glass door, Bojio glanced over. It was mainly because the back view was too attractive. Bojio couldn't control her gaze. Her face was a little hot, but it didn't affect her appreciation of the Almighty's beauty. It was a pity that good times didn't last long. As the figure reached out, the shower stopped, and there was no sound. Chapter 1139. She had just entered, and he was asking her to leave? Bojio arched a brow. She hadn't seen enough. She had to find a reason to stay longer. She leaned against the wall, changing her tone as she admired the Almighty's beautiful back. "There aren't any steamed buns in the canteen, so I got some rice for Captain." Chinimo paused for a moment. His voice full of charisma followed. "A new soldier?" The next moment, there was a loud crash. It was the sound of the wooden door being pulled open. Bojio immediately lowered her head, pretending to be arranging the rice bowls. What was the Almighty up to? Why didn't he inform her before coming out? Bojio's heart skipped a beat. Fortunately, her face was dark. Otherwise, he would have noticed the commotion. Fortunately, the Almighty's back was facing her when he came out. He held a towel with one hand, caressing his black hair in front of an average-sized mirror. Bojio heaved a sigh of relief, her voice flawless. "Reporting, he's new. This tone? A northerner?" Chinamo wiped his hair with one hand, his black hair covering his eyes. Bojio couldn't see his face from her position, but it was still a beautiful sight. Sunlight slowly seeped in through the large window, dyeing his shadow with a layer of fur. Chinamo, who had just showered, was only wearing a pair of brown army pants with a black leather belt. His tall and straight back was curvy enough to make people's noses bleed as he lifted his arms. The water droplets on his hair hadn't dried yet. The sunlight shone in, making everyone's throat tighten. Seriously, the Almighty's actions were against the rules. Bojio was afraid she would give herself away if she continued looking. While the Almighty was still drying his hair, she replied, "Captain, I'll be heading out." "All right." Even someone as smart as Chin Mo wouldn't pay attention to a soldier who was delivering food after a shower. When Bojio closed the door, she caught sight of the person who had finished drying his hair. He picked up the gun at the side and tilted his head to take aim. His black hair and the water droplets splashed onto his handsome face, his side profile etched into a silhouette. Bojio glanced at him subconsciously. He was too handsome. The handsome Almighty in his military uniform always made her heart itch. Bojio felt that this wasn't good. She had to restrain herself, so she didn't stay any longer. When Chin Mo heard the sound of the door closing, he looked over and frowned. When did they change the firemen? Bojio came downstairs, prepared to have a good talk with Little Blackie. Little Black had the same idea. It had to reveal the true face of the great Demon King, who knew that its program had just started and it hadn't even finished speaking. The owner asked, "What's the Almighty's daily routine?" Xiao Hei's eyes twitched. "Master, you've been bewitched by this man." As a competent smart car, I think we should have a chat about this little vixen's character first. Character? Bojio arched a brow. What would a car like you know about character? Give me the data. Little Black. Master, why are you asking about his routine? Bojio swept a glance at the recruits who were about to walk over. She tilted her head and adjusted her military cap, using it as a cover. She didn't stop her voice. Of course, it's to admire the Almighty in his military uniform. When I went up just now, the Almighty was bathing, and I didn't get a chance to take a good look. Now that I'm in the dark and he's out in the open, he can see everything. Little Blackie analyzed the data he had obtained ever since he had met Chin Mo. Master, is it really okay for you to be so smitten? It's perfect for the Almighty. Bojio tilted her head. Even in the dark, a devilish smile could be seen. What else could Little Blackie say? He decided to ask the netizens while it was being activated. His master was so bewitched by this little vixen that she didn't even care about him. What should he do? The netizens' replies were the most hurtful. He could only cry in silence. It was easy to get the data. After Bojio got what she wanted, she turned and placed her long legs on the wheel. Remember, cover for me. It'll be troublesome if the Almighty finds out I'm here. Little Blackie wavered. Indeed, it will be troublesome. Master, I thought your intelligence had been eaten away by beauty. Thankfully, you still have a bit of consciousness left. I'm really touched by your words. Bojio arched a brow. Your car is good at everything, but it talks too much. I'll apply to wash it tomorrow. I don't think you can. Ever since I came here, the great Demon King has been washing my car personally. But Master, to be honest, the great Demon King must hate you. The day you left, he seemed a little strange. Little Black didn't understand human emotions, so he could only explain it on the surface. Bojio clenched her fists before releasing them. Her tone sounded nonchalant. I won't let the Almighty find out before I destroy the organization. Little Blackie didn't reply. From a certain perspective, he trusted his master's disguise. Bojio's disguise was indeed good, but even the best disguise couldn't stop the Almighty from noticing her. This is his information? Chin Mo sat in the light. He was already dressed in his military uniform. From his forehead to his chin, he seemed to be emitting a noble light. Yes. Hunter nodded. Almost the entire operation team is here, which means that they can all see the information of recruit number 10. When did the army recruit such a genius? Magician was still in disbelief. He's young and can fight. Why didn't he write a code name? The photo is blacked out. Nothing can be seen. Hunter, did you get the wrong information? Hunter was speechless. This is the information I got. A technical soldier that can fight in the wilderness. Our army has unlimited potential. Magician frowned. Such a person should be in the state security. Why is he here? It would be strange if the state security didn't snatch him away. Hunter arched a brow. You're asking me? He might even be willing to join us. Magician chuckled, placing his arm on Hunter's shoulder. If that's the case, it's understandable that you got slapped in the face when you went to fetch him. Even Commander Wong was furious and anxious, asking Boss many times who he was. They wanted to snatch him away. With that, Magician glanced behind him. Wolf, do you have any concrete understanding of him since he was in the same dormitory? Wolf's voice was deep. He's skilled, observant, and vigilant, but his basic living skills are lacking. He doesn't seem like someone from the army. Doesn't seem like someone from the army? Why? Magician was curious. Chapter 1140. Magician wanted to say something, but Chin Mo opened his mouth. Chin Mo, who was sitting on the other side, opened his mouth. His voice was indifferent. Go to the training ground and ask. 5 words. The decision was made. The operation team was indeed interested in this new technical soldier. When they received the news, Bo Jio was still training. She carried a gun and crawled forward while shooting from a distance. Of course, the most important thing was running with weights. Number 10. The instructor's voice was hoarse in the hot weather. Step out. Bo Jio paused before running over. Her face was still dark, but it wasn't ugly. Follow me. The instructor sized her up and prepared to bring her away. Prince watched from the side, wondering if this person was going to be eliminated. But after some thought, it wasn't possible since the black youngster had done a great job. What was he going to do? When the instructor called for her, Bo Jio assumed it was because she hadn't folded her blanket. It wasn't the first time after all. Just as Bo Jio was about to tell the instructor that she wasn't able to fold tofu, a tall figure appeared. After turning a corner, he saw a slender figure standing there. The man was wearing a military uniform with a tassel on his shoulder. One of his hands was hanging by his side. Perhaps it was because the sun was too bright, or perhaps he had just taken a shower, but when he stood there, his pitch-black hair seemed to be plated with a layer of light. He wasn't the only one there. There were a few other officers, but none of them could compare to that person's outstanding looks, especially when he was dressed in a military uniform. Bo Jio's first reaction was, oh no. His long legs didn't move. The person on the other side had already finished speaking and looked up at her. Bo Jio lowered her lids, trying to cover her face with the military cap. It was effective. After all, they weren't very close to each other. But even so, it was still very dangerous. She couldn't escape. He's here. The hunter straightened his back a little. Chin Mo tilted his head. His gaze hadn't landed yet. Magician asked, all right, why doesn't the recruit have a code name? Yes. Wolf's tone had always been calm. It's probably because it's too unique and can't be written on the information sheet. Magician arched a brow. Oh, what's his name? Sugar Daddy. Wolf paused for a moment when he said that. Magician's expression changed. F***CK. Are you serious about this code name? That's what he said. Wolf also didn't know how to come up with such a name. A few people were talking. No one noticed Chin Mo's sudden pause when he heard the code name. Then, his gaze fell on the figure who was walking towards him with his head lowered. The figure was neither tall nor short. His military cap was pulled down very low, making it impossible to see his appearance. Only his chin was revealed, and his skin was very dark. The camouflage combat uniform had been ruined by the young man to the point where it was completely unrecognizable. If this person was thrown onto the training ground, he would be nothing more than an ordinary recruit. Chin Mo's eyes dimmed. There seemed to be something churning in them, like the deep sea of the night. Sir, I've brought him here. The instructor saluted as soon as he touched the ground with his heels. Bo Jio raised her hand as well. Her actions didn't seem out of place. After all, the more flustered she was, the more likely the Almighty would recognize her. With her current attire, skin tone, and the military cap as a cover, she could try her luck. But for some reason, she felt as though she had raised her hand for too long. Return to the team. A voice rang beside her ear. It was Chin Mo's words to the instructor. The instructor replied, yes, before jogging back in the direction he had come from. Bo Jio heaved a sigh of relief. But very quickly, she regained her composure. Her gaze landed on the pair of military boots that was getting closer and closer. Her heartbeat quickened. He heard the man's voice. Age. It wasn't a safe question. By asking this question, it meant that the Almighty was treating her like a recruit. Bo Jio changed her voice. 19. Army background? Chin Mo's gaze deepened when he asked the question. His gaze landed on the top of the person's head, his expression still noble and indifferent. Magician and the others didn't see anything. They still felt that there wasn't anything wrong with the question. In the past, whenever a recruit joined the team, the captain would ask the same question. Bo Jio could tell from a voice that they were very close, but everything was within a safe range. The more they were like this, the more it meant that everything was going according to plan. Yes. Bo Jio lowered her head further. The voice by her ear asked slowly with a unique nonchalance. Don't the people from the army know how to fold their blankets? Bo Jio replied directly, Sir, I'm the only one who doesn't know how to do it. Just now, your roommate said that you don't look like you came from the military. What do you think? Chin Mo asked slowly. Bo Jio immediately realized that it was indeed a loophole that she didn't know how to fold her blankets. But she couldn't let the Almighty know about this loophole. Bo Jio found an excuse. Sir, they said the same thing when I was in the army. They almost kicked me back home because of this. Fortunately, my other achievements made up for it. That's why I stayed in the army. I heard that the other units have strict requirements. Of course, which soldier doesn't know how to fold their blankets? Magician said, but your other results are indeed outstanding. You're a technical soldier. Why would you want to join us? You should have a better place to go. There isn't a soldier who doesn't want to join the elite soldiers unit. I'm no exception. As long as it wasn't the Almighty's question, Bo Jio didn't feel any pressure answering. Magician and Wolf looked at each other. There wasn't anything wrong with this reason, but it was a little far-fetched. However, he didn't know what else to ask. After all, he needed a few more days to understand more. Whether it was Magician or Hunter, both of them thought that this was enough for them to return to the team. Unexpectedly, you guys go back first. Chin Mo turned his head, his voice calm. The few people in the operation team were puzzled. They go back first? Why? Could it be that boss wanted to ask this recruit alone? After figuring this out, Magician and the rest replied, yes. He moved very quickly, disappearing into the horizon in 3 or 4 steps. Bo Jio was still thinking about what the Almighty would ask her after sending them away. It would probably be something related to computers or hacking. How should she deal with it? However, in the next second, her brain froze. It wasn't because of anything else. Instead, it was because of the words that rang in her ears. Sugar Daddy, when are you going to stop using it? Chapter 1141. In that instant, Bo Jio froze. Bo Jio froze, her heart clenching. That voice was careless, but it also meant that her disguise had been exposed. The nickname Sugar Daddy was too harmful. Bo Jio was still thinking about how to explain why she was in the military. On the other side, Chin Mo spoke again with a hint of coldness. What is it? You don't even have the courage to look up at me? Bo Jio could only bite the bullet and look up. She saw the cold and handsome face and the frown on his face. Did you go to Africa? It was obvious that the Almighty didn't like her skin color. If not, he wouldn't have looked so disgusted. Bo Jio felt that her skin color was much darker than the Almighty's. It was ugly. It's a disguise. Chin Mo sized the youngster up. Come over. Bo Jio took a step forward. Chin Mo watched her, his left hand in his pocket tightening. His military uniform was ramrod straight, his gaze deep as he asked, Why are you here? This time, someone from the military looked for me to join the operation team for an overseas mission. Bo Jio was worried that the Almighty would reject her. Hence, she decided to tell him the truth. After hearing Bo Jio's words, Chin Mo chuckled. As expected, it wasn't because of him. He released his left hand, the emotions in his eyes fading. I thought Z liked to be alone and felt that everyone was a burden. She would abandon anyone. Bo Jio opened her mouth, wanting to say something. That person turned around indifferently. His tall and straight back was filled with a sense of distance. His long legs paused for a moment. I'll give you 1 day to leave this place. Bojio couldn't call him back. She couldn't understand the Almighty's reaction. Hadn't the Almighty left first that day? Was there something she didn't know? Bojio stilled. Her first reaction was to look for her Lamborghini and ask about the situation that day. When little Blackie was opened again, it was delighted. After all, Master had always been secretive when she saw it. She had never been so open before. She was definitely going to drive it away. Master, has your identity been exposed? Run away now? I agree with your idea. It's better to escape as soon as possible. If we're late, it'll be very difficult. Little Black said excitedly. This was all obtained through its intelligent analysis. Bojio arched a brow. So what if your identity is exposed? Who said anything about leaving? What exactly happened when the Almighty drove you away? Tell me in detail. Xiaohei was rather regretful about this. That's all. That day, after the great Demon King drove me away, he drove me back to the castle and even bought you a midnight snack on the way. Speaking of which, Master, you must be careful of this little demon of yours. He was willing to be kidnapped by you, and he even wanted to use your guilt to see how you would confess. All of this was premeditated. What plan could there be? As a car, you shouldn't have such rich imagination. Bojio stood beside the car and thought for a moment before asking. He didn't want to leave that day. Little Black answered affirmatively, no. Bojio smiled faintly with a hint of sweetness. The Almighty still likes me, even though my identity is Z. Little Black was helpless. Master, wake up. Your identity has been exposed. You should be considering whether he will catch you or kick you away, not continue to be bewitched by his beauty. He didn't want to kick me away. Bojio's gaze turned a little further away, like amber. There was a hint of loneliness. After all, liking someone was one thing, but whether he could accept it was another. But as long as he didn't hate her, everything was fine. But based on the current situation, it would probably be difficult for the Almighty to accept her. Xiaohei was right. The most important thing for her to consider now was how she could stay. Bojio stood there, her face tilted deep in thought. She didn't notice Qin Mo lowering his head to look out of the window on the second floor. When a youngster neared the Lamborghini, Qin Mo's gaze turned cold. The temperature in Qin Mo's gaze had obviously dropped. Of course, he wasn't worried that a certain someone would be able to leave after entering this place. But he didn't want to experience the feeling of being abandoned a second time. Captain, you were looking for me? Hunter walked in. Qin Mo reached out and passed him for him. Hunter's gaze trembled. You want to eliminate number 10? Boss, even though number 10 isn't up to standard in some aspects, we need his abilities. Besides, before Hunter could finish his words, he stopped talking. He knew that his boss wouldn't change his mind so easily. But what happened next was out of Hunter's expectations. No, the entire operation team realized a problem. Wherever the captain appeared, the recruit would definitely appear nearby in less than 5 minutes. Just like now, running at dusk was their captain's habit. He didn't like to be disturbed. They didn't dare to go near him and would just do whatever they wanted to do. Who would have thought that the recruit, who didn't know what was going on, would take a detour from another path and merge with the team leader? It wasn't that Qin Mo didn't notice a certain someone's actions today. Especially now, that person was smiling faintly as he ran while looking at him. It was hard to ignore. Only Qin Mo could ignore that gaze. If it was someone else, they wouldn't have been able to continue running. There wasn't a standard running track in the military. Instead, they had basic training in the training camp. In order to maintain the best condition of his body, running was as easy as drinking water for Qin Mo. But in the past, he didn't use much time after 10 laps. The soldier beside him didn't understand. Why was he so slow today? Especially when he was on the 5th lap. Young Master Qin glanced to his side. Perhaps because he was disturbed, his brows were slightly furrowed. But young Master Qin didn't say anything. This was too strange. The soldier didn't understand. Hence, such a scene appeared on the training ground. The tall man ran in front of them effortlessly. The youngster who was running with him seemed to be unable to keep up. Under the dusk, the shadows of these two slender figures were elongated. Gradually, there was a change in their breathing. Magician, who was watching from the side, thought that their captain must have disliked the recruit and thought of such a method to mess with him. He had to admit that their captain was too cunning. No matter how arrogant the recruit was, he wouldn't be able to last long in their captain's hands. Their captain was too much. If he wanted someone to leave, he could just say so. Why did he have to use such a method? But just as he had this thought, you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.